Alara Vane barely made it 3 blocks before her legs gave out. Blood streaked her vision. Rain hammered the flooded savannah streets as headlights pierced through the storm behind her. Declan's men, hunting. She'd escaped his townhouse prison with nothing but torn fabric clinging to bruised skin and the sick knowledge that he'd already erased 2 women before her. Psychiatric wards, fake identities, legal paperwork signed by his judge father. She collapsed against iron gates as an intercom crackled overhead. A voice emerged through thunder. "You're bleeding on my property." The gates opened. Inside waited Roman Virelli, the most dangerous man in Georgia. If you want to see how this story ends, stay with me until the final word. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The security footage would later show Alara Vane collapsing against the Virelli estate gates at 2:47 a.m., her body crumpling like something already dead. Rain obscured most details, but the blood was obvious, dark streaks painting her temple, her neck, soaking through what remained of an expensive dress, now shredded at the hem. She wasn't unconscious yet. Her fingers clawed at the iron bars with the frantic energy of someone who knew stopping meant dying. Roman Virelli watched the monitor from his study, whiskey glass halfway to his lips. He'd been reviewing shipping manifests when the perimeter alarm triggered. His estate didn't get random visitors. It especially didn't get half-dead women showing up during coastal storms that had already knocked out power across half the city. He leaned closer to the screen. The woman's eyes were open, staring directly at the camera. Even through rain and blood and whatever hell she'd crawled out of, there was something deliberate in that stare. Not pleading, not broken. Cornered. Roman pressed the intercom button. "You're bleeding on my property." His voice carried through the storm. "Who did this to you?" The woman's lips moved, but the wind swallowed her words. Behind her, maybe 200 yards down the private road, headlights appeared. 2 vehicles, moving slowly. Hunting. Roman's jaw tightened. He pressed another button. "Marco, visitors incoming. Handle it before they reach the gates." "Copy." Then Roman opened the gates himself. The woman collapsed forward the moment the iron bars swung inward, her body hitting the driveway with a sound that shouldn't have been audible over the storm, but somehow was. Roman was already moving, crossing the marble entryway and stepping into rain that hit like fists. His men appeared from the shadows, 4 of them, armed, efficient, silent. "Bring her inside," Roman ordered. "Medical kit, now." He crouched beside the woman, turning her onto her back. Her eyes found his immediately, unfocused but fierce. Blood matted her dark hair to her skull. Bruises darkened her throat in the unmistakable shape of fingers. "You're safe," Roman said. Her laugh came out wet, broken. "No such thing." Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp. Roman lifted her easily. She weighed almost nothing, and carried her inside while thunder split the sky behind him. Somewhere down the road, Marco's team was dealing with whoever had been stupid enough to chase prey onto Virelli property. Roman didn't need updates on how that would end. Inside, the house swallowed the storm's noise. His head of security, Nico, was already waiting in the second-floor guest suite with a medical kit spread across the bed. Nico had been with Roman for 12 years. He knew when to ask questions and when to simply move. Roman laid the woman down carefully. Concussion, Nico assessed immediately, checking her pupils with a penlight. Defensive wounds on her hands. Strangulation marks maybe 6 hours old, fractured rib, possibly 2. He glanced at Roman. "She ran a long way before she got here. Find out who she is." Roman stepped back, giving Nico space to work. Quietly. "Already on it." Roman watched Nico clean the head wound, his movements precise and surprisingly gentle for a man whose primary job involved breaking bones. The woman didn't wake. Her breathing stayed shallow but steady, her face slack in a way that made her look younger than she probably was. Mid-20s, maybe. The kind of beauty that attracted the wrong kind of attention. Downstairs, Marco appeared in the doorway. Rain dripped from his jacket onto imported marble. 2 cars, Marco reported. Black Audis. They turned around when they saw us. "They see her come in?" "No, gates were already closed." Roman nodded slowly. "License plates?" "Dealer plates. Rentals, probably." Which meant whoever was hunting her had resources but wanted distance from the chase. Professional but deniable. Roman's mind sorted through possibilities: jealous husband, debt collection, witness protection gone wrong. None of them felt right. Pull traffic camera footage from the bridge, Roman said. Track them backward. I want to know where she came from. Marco hesitated. Boss, this woman is bleeding in my house, Roman finished, which makes her my problem now. Work the problem, Marco. Marco left without another word. Roman returned his attention to the unconscious stranger. Nico had finished bandaging her head and was now wrapping her ribs. The dress she wore cost money, real money, not department store money, custom tailoring, silk blend, but it had been torn deliberately, not by accident, the hem shredded, the shoulder strap ripped at an angle that suggested hands, not fabric failure. Someone had hurt her slowly. Roman's phone buzzed. A text from Nico's research contact. Facial recognition running. Stand by. He pocketed the phone and walked to the window. The storm was finally breaking, rain softening from hammering to steady. Dawn was still 2 hours away. His estate stretched dark and silent toward the marsh, security lights casting long shadows across manicured grounds that hid surveillance equipment and buried deterrents most visitors would never see. Roman had built his empire on knowing when to act and when to wait. This situation required both. The woman represented either an opportunity or a catastrophic liability, and he wouldn't know which until she woke up and started talking. If she woke up. Nico finished his work and stood. She'll live. Probably wake up in a few hours. I'll stay nearby. No. Roman settled into the chair beside the bed. I will. Nico's eyebrow raised fractionally, the closest he ever came to showing surprise, but he nodded and left without comment. Roman sat in silence, watching the rise and fall of the stranger's breathing. Outside, Savannah began its slow crawl toward morning. Somewhere in the city, people were waking up to storm damage and power outages and flooded streets. Somewhere else, someone was realizing their prey had escaped. Let them realize it, Roman thought. Let them panic. Panic made people sloppy, and sloppy people made mistakes he could exploit. His phone buzzed again. This time, a photo appeared. A driver's license image, followed by a wall of text. Alara Vane. 26. No criminal record. Last known address, 1847 Whitaker Street, Unit 4B. Reported missing 14 days ago by former employer. Missing persons case assigned to Detective Sarah Chen, SPD. Case status, inactive. Notes indicate probable voluntary departure. No family contacts listed. Roman scrolled further. Additional, subject previously filed 2 restraining orders, both dismissed, filed against Declan Hollow, Assistant District Attorney, Chatham County. Roman stopped scrolling. Declan Hollow. The name landed in his mind like a stone dropping into still water, ripples spreading outward. Everyone in Savannah knew the Hollow family. Judge Everett Hollow had sat on the state superior court for 23 years. His son Declan was the golden boy prosecutor, Harvard-educated, impeccable conviction rate, rumored to be eyeing a congressional run in 2 years. The Hollows represented old money, old power, and the kind of untouchable legitimacy that Roman's world could never buy. Which meant Alara Vane, bleeding in his guest room, had just made Roman Varelli's life extremely complicated. He should have left her at the gates. The smart move, the move that kept his operation clean and his exposure minimal, was to call an ambulance, let the professionals handle it, maintain deniable distance. Roman had built 30 years of survival on making smart moves. Instead, he sat beside a stranger's bed and waited for her to wake up. The storm finally died completely around 5 a.m. Gray dawn light filtered through the windows, turning everything pale and washed out. Nico brought coffee without being asked, setting a cup beside Roman's chair before disappearing again. At 6:14 a.m., Alara Vane's eyes opened. She didn't gasp or flail. She simply stared at the ceiling for several seconds, her breathing unchanged, her body utterly still. Roman recognized the response. She was cataloging her surroundings before revealing consciousness. Smart. You're in my house, Roman said quietly. You're safe. Her head turned slowly toward his voice. The movement looked painful. Her eyes focused on his face, studying him with an intensity that most people couldn't maintain after head trauma. Where? Her voice came out raw. 20 miles outside Savannah proper, private estate. No one knows you're here. She processed that. Her gaze moved to the bandages on her arms, the IV line Nico had placed in her left hand, the expensive furniture surrounding them. "You're Roman Virelli." Not a question. "Yes." She stopped, swallowed. "The Mafia Boss." Roman almost smiled. People usually avoided saying it directly. That's one description. Alara tried to sit up. Pain flashed across her face and she fell back, breathing hard. "I need to leave." "You have 2 fractured ribs and a concussion. You're not leaving anywhere." "He'll find me." Her hand moved toward the IV line like she planned to rip it out. "He always—" "Declan Hollow?" Roman kept his voice level. "He won't find you. This property has better security than the governor's mansion." Alara froze. "How do you know his name?" "Because I run background checks on bleeding strangers who show up at my gates." Roman leaned forward slightly. "You filed restraining orders against him. Both dismissed." Her jaw clenched. "His father's a judge." "I'm aware." "Then you know what that means." Alara's eyes were hard now, the shock burning off into something sharper. "You know he can do whatever he wants." "On paper, maybe." Roman stood, walking to the window. Outside, his grounds looked peaceful in morning light. Manicured lawns, old growth trees, the marsh visible as a dark line in the distance. But paper only matters if people care about it. And the thing about men like Declan Hollow is they've never met someone who genuinely doesn't give a damn about their paperwork. Alara said nothing. Roman turned back to face her. "I'm going to ask you one question, and I need the truth. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "Did you kill anyone tonight?" "No." No hesitation. "Did you steal anything?" "No." "Are federal agencies actively looking for you?" "I don't know. I don't think so." Roman nodded. "Then you can stay here until you heal. After that, we'll discuss what comes next." Alara stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. "Why? Why what? Why would you help me?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You don't know me. And Declan, his family has connections, real connections. Helping me makes you a target." Roman returned to his chair. "Let me tell you something about connections, Alara. Connections work great until someone decides they don't care about consequences. The Hollows have spent years building legitimacy. I've spent years not needing it." He met her eyes directly. "So yes, helping you might make me a target, but I've been a target since I was 19 years old. One more doesn't change much." "That's insane." "Probably. I could be lying about everything." "You could be," Roman agreed, "but you're not." "How do you know?" "Because liars don't show up bleeding and barefoot." He gestured toward her feet, which Nico had bandaged where glass and pavement had shredded skin. "They show up with a story already prepared. You showed up with nothing but terror. That's real." Alara's throat worked. For a moment, Roman thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. "There's another woman," she said finally. "Serena Vale, Declan's ex-girlfriend before me." "What about her?" "She disappeared 2 years ago. Everyone thinks she moved away, mental breakdown, whatever story Declan told." Alara opened her eyes. "But I found her medical records hidden in his home office. Psychiatric commitment papers. His father signed them. She's in a facility somewhere under a fake name." Roman's expression didn't change, but his mind was already moving. "You're sure?" "I saw the documents. Diagnosis forms, medication logs, everything. She's been drugged into compliance for 2 years. Alara's hands fisted in the sheets. "That was going to be my future. I was next. I just figured it out in time." "How?" "His assistant called the house by mistake. Asked about final paperwork for the Vale commitment renewal. Wrong number, wrong day." Alara's laugh held no humor. "I started digging after that. Found everything hidden behind a false drawer in his desk. And when he realized I knew—" She stopped, touching her throat where the bruises darkened. Roman stood. "Get some rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger." "You believe me?" Alara's voice rose slightly. "Just like that?" "I believe powerful men erase inconvenient women all the time," Roman said flatly. "I believe judges sign paperwork without reading it. I believe the legal system protects people like the Hollows because it was designed to." He paused at the door. "What I don't know yet is what you want to do about it." "I want him destroyed." No hesitation, no wavering, pure conviction. Roman studied her for a long moment. This broken, exhausted woman who'd crawled through a storm to survive and was now talking about revenge before her wounds had even closed. "Then rest," he said, "because destroying the hollows takes more than wanting it. It takes planning, resources, and patience." He left before she could respond. Downstairs, Marco was waiting with a tablet. "Boss, we've got a problem." Roman took the tablet. Security footage from a traffic camera near the Whitaker Street address showed two black Audis parked outside a luxury townhouse. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., approximately 3 hours before Alara arrived at the estate. "That's Hollow's property," Marco confirmed, "registered to a shell company his father controls. And look at this." He swiped to the next video. Same location, different angle. A woman, Alara, climbing out of a second-story window, dropping to a balcony, then jumping to the ground. She landed badly, stumbled, then ran. The Audi's headlights switched on immediately. "They were waiting for her," Roman observed. "Yeah, like they knew she'd run." Roman handed back the tablet. "Find Serena Vale. If she exists, I want to know where. Medical facilities, psychiatric hospitals, private clinics. Search everything within 500 miles. Use the fake name if you have to run combinations. That's going to cost. So cost me." Marco nodded and left. Roman walked to his study, poured another whiskey even though dawn was breaking, and stared at the photograph on his desk, a 20-year-old picture of himself with his father and uncle back when the Virelli name meant survival instead of power. He'd built this empire by knowing which fights to take and which to avoid. The Hollows represented institutional power, legal immunity, and generational connections that could bury him in paperwork and investigations and federal scrutiny. Taking them on was strategically idiotic. It was also, Roman realized, the first thing in years that felt worth doing. Upstairs, Alara stared at the ceiling and tried to remember how to breathe without panic. The room was beautiful. Cream walls, expensive furniture, windows that let in soft morning light. No locks on the door. No cameras visible. No one watching her every movement. That terrified her more than Declan's basement ever had. Because this felt like the setup. This felt like the moment before the trap closed. Declan had done this too, at first. Been kind, been patient, given her space and choices and the illusion of freedom. Then slowly, the walls had closed. The choices disappeared. The kindness revealed itself as manipulation. She touched the bandages on her head. These were real. The pain in her ribs was real. Roman Virelli's promise about safety, that she didn't know yet. But the alternative was going back, and Alara would rather die. She forced herself to sit up, ignoring the way her vision swam and her ribs screamed. The room spun briefly, then steadied. Her feet touched the floor. The bandages made walking awkward but not impossible. The door was unlocked. Alara opened it slowly, half expecting alarms or guards or something. The hallway beyond was empty, quiet. Morning light filtered through tall windows, illuminating oil paintings and polished wood floors that probably cost more than Alara had earned in her entire life. She walked slowly, testing each step, found stairs, descended carefully, one hand on the railing. Voices drifted from somewhere below. Male, speaking too quietly to make out words. Alara followed the sound until she reached a partially open door. Through the gap, she could see Roman sitting at a massive desk, papers spread before him, speaking on the phone in what sounded like Italian. He looked different in daylight. Older than she'd initially thought, maybe early 40s. Hard features that suggested violence survived rather than inflicted. Expensive clothes that fit too well to be accidental. Everything about him screamed control. Roman glanced up mid-sentence and their eyes met. He didn't look surprised, just held up one finger. Wait, and finished his conversation. Then he set down the phone and gestured for her to enter. "You should be resting," he said. "Needed to move." Alara leaned against the doorframe, unwilling to sit. "You speak Italian?" "Sicilian, mostly. Old habits." Roman stood, walking to a side table where coffee was already prepared. He poured a cup without asking, handed it to her. "You look steadier." Alara accepted the coffee. It was perfect. Black, strong, exactly what she needed. "You knew I'd come downstairs." "I guessed." Roman returned to his desk but didn't sit. "You're trying to figure out if this is real or another trap." "Is it?" "Which would I say if it was a trap?" Despite everything, Alara almost smiled. "Exactly what you just said." Then you'll have to decide for yourself. Roman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening fractionally. My people found something. Alara's hands tightened on the coffee cup. Serena? Maybe. There's a private facility outside Augusta. Patient admitted 2 years ago under the name Sarah Voss. Committed by family, payment through an LLC registered in Atlanta. Roman looked at her directly. The LLC's registered agent is a law firm the Hollows use. The coffee cup shook in Alara's hands. That's her. It's circumstantial, not proof. It's her, Alara repeated. I know it is. We have to do nothing, Roman interrupted. You need to heal. I need to verify this information. And then, if it checks out, we move carefully. She's been in there for 2 years, Alara's voice rose. Drugged, isolated, probably thinking no one's coming, which is why we don't rush in and make mistakes that get her killed. Roman's voice stayed level. The Hollows have been doing this for years. They're good at it. That means we have to be better. Alara wanted to argue, to demand immediate action, to do something other than stand in a stranger's house drinking perfect coffee while another woman rotted in pharmaceutical oblivion. But Roman was right, and she knew it. How long? She asked finally. For what? How long before we move? Roman considered. You heal, 2 weeks minimum. I verify the facility and build intelligence on their security, staffing, and protocols. Background on every doctor and nurse, payment trails, legal vulnerabilities. He paused. Call it 3 weeks total, maybe 4. That's too long. That's how long it takes to do this right. Roman's eyes held hers. I'm not going to let her die in there, but I'm also not going to get everyone killed trying to be a hero. Understand? Alara understood. She didn't like it, but she understood. What do I do in the meantime? She asked. Heal, rest, stay off the grid. Roman returned to his desk and start thinking about what comes after, because pulling Serena out is step 1. Taking down the Hollows is going to be step 50. Good. Alara's voice hardened. I want them destroyed. All of them. Careful. Roman's tone shifted, becoming something colder. Revenge is expensive. It costs more than you think, and it never pays back what you hope. Speaking from experience. Always. Alara studied him, this man who ran a criminal empire but lectured about patience, who offered safety without demands, who looked at her like she was human instead of prey. Why are you really doing this? She asked. Roman was silent for a long moment, then, because 20 years ago, someone helped me when they didn't have to, and I survived, and I built this. He gestured vaguely at the expensive room around them. Maybe it's time to pass that forward. That's surprisingly philosophical for a mafia boss. Even criminals have hobbies. This time Alara did smile, just slightly. Then exhaustion crashed over her like a wave and she swayed. Roman was across the room instantly, catching her elbow. Upstairs, now. He guided her back to the guest room, his grip steady but not controlling. When they reached the bed, Alara collapsed onto it gratefully. 3 weeks, she murmured, eyes already closing. At least. And then we burned them down. Roman pulled the blanket over her. Get some sleep, Alara. She was unconscious before he left the room. Roman stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at nothing. Then he pulled out his phone and typed a message to Marco. Accelerate the timeline. I want everything on that facility in 1 week, not 3. Because Roman Varelli had spent his entire adult life being patient, being calculated, being smart. But watching Alara Vane collapse from exhaustion while another woman slowly died in a psychiatric prison had reminded him of something important. Sometimes the smart move was also the coward's move, and Roman had never been a coward. Downstairs, his organization began moving. Contacts activated, money transferred, information flowing through channels that existed specifically for moments like this. By the time the sun fully rose over Savannah, Roman had committed resources that would either destroy the Hollow Empire or trigger a war that would consume everything he'd built. In her locked townhouse across the city, Declan Hollow sat in his home office surrounded by police reports and private security footage. The blood on his marble floor had been cleaned, the broken window had been boarded. But Alara was gone, vanished into a storm, and 12 hours of searching had produced nothing. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hollow. Mr. Hollow, this is Marcus Webb from Sentinel Security Consulting. Professional voice, neutral tone. We've completed the preliminary search you requested. The subject was last spotted on traffic cameras approximately 3 miles from your residence, heading northwest. Trail goes cold after that. What does that mean? It means she either found shelter or died from her injuries. The storm was category conditions, visibility near 0. If she was on foot, find her. Declan's voice stayed calm, controlled. I don't care what it costs. Find her or find a body. Understood? Understood. We'll continue the search and keep you updated. The line went dead. Declan set down the phone and stared at the false drawer where he'd kept Serena's paperwork. Empty, now. Alara had taken everything, every document, every form, every piece of evidence that could connect him to what happened. But evidence didn't matter without a witness. And witnesses were easy to discredit, especially witnesses with no family, no resources, and a history of mental instability that Declan had spent 2 years carefully constructing in medical records and police reports. All he had to do was find her first. Declan picked up his phone again, scrolling through contacts until he found the one he needed. His father answered on the second ring. Declan, it's early. We have a problem. Judge Everett Hollow's voice sharpened instantly. Explain. The Vane girl. She ran, took documentation with her. Silence. Then, how much documentation? Everything on Vale, commitment papers, facility information, payment trails. Christ, his father breathed out slowly. Where is she now? Unknown. Search teams are working on it. Find her, Declan, fast, because if those documents surface, they won't. She has nowhere to go. No money, no connections, no credibility. And even if she tries going public, we have 2 years of medical records showing progressive instability. That's not enough anymore, his father said quietly. Not after the Brennan case. People are watching us now. One mistake, there won't be mistakes. Declan's voice hardened. I'll handle this. See that you do. Because if this falls apart, it doesn't just destroy you. It destroys everything I've built. The line went dead. Declan sat in silence, staring at his perfect office with its perfect furniture and perfect view. He'd been so careful. Serena had been easy, isolated, no family, history of depression that made her commitment believable. Alara was supposed to be even easier. Foster system kid, no connections, grateful for the attention until it was too late. But she'd been smart. Suspicious, and now she was loose with evidence that could unravel everything. Declan stood and walked to the window. Dawn light painted Savannah in gold and shadow. Beautiful. Pristine. His city. Built on his family's reputation, where his name opened doors and his father's signature closed them. Alara Vane was just one woman. Frightened, injured, alone. She wouldn't survive this. Declan would make certain of that. 3 miles away in Roman Varelli's mansion, Alara slept deeply for the first time in 2 years. No nightmares, no locks, just silence and safety and the distant knowledge that somewhere in this house, the most dangerous man in Georgia was planning something that would either save her or destroy them both. She didn't know which yet, but for the first time since meeting Declan Hollow, Alara Vane felt something other than fear. She felt hope, and that, Roman thought, as he reviewed facility blueprints in his study, was the most dangerous thing of all. The first week passed in a strange suspension of reality. Alara healed slowly, her body knitting itself back together while her mind remained fractured and raw. Roman kept his distance. Meals appeared at predictable times, delivered by Nico or Marco, never commented on whether she ate them. The door stayed unlocked. No one asked questions. That restraint unnerved her more than threats ever could. On the 8th morning, Alara woke to voices drifting up from somewhere below. Male voices, arguing in low tones that carried more weight than volume. She pulled on the borrowed clothes someone had left folded on a chair, soft cotton pants and a shirt that hung loose on her frame, and followed the sound downstairs. The argument was happening in Roman's study. The door stood half open. Completely insane, Marco was saying. You're talking about infiltrating a state-licensed psychiatric facility. That's not smuggling cargo or bribing port inspectors. That's federal jurisdiction if it goes wrong. It won't go wrong. Roman's voice held no doubt. You don't know that. We don't even have confirmation that Vale is actually there. Just circumstantial. The LLC matches. The timing matches. The commitment paperwork matches Hollow's signature patterns. Patterns aren't proof. Marco's frustration was evident. And even if she's there, extracting her without triggering every alarm in the state requires resources we don't have. Medical transport, fake transfer orders, staff cooperation. Then acquire them. With what justification? You want me to tell our contacts we're suddenly running charity operations for the DA's victims? That exposes us to... I don't care about exposure. Roman's tone shifted, becoming something colder. I care about getting her out before the Hollows realize we know she exists. Silence fell. Then Marco. This is about the girl upstairs. This is about doing what's right. Since when do we do what's right? Marco's voice rose slightly. We do what's profitable, what's strategic, what keeps our operation protected. This breaks every rule we... Enough. Not loud, but absolute. I've made the decision. You have 3 days to build me an extraction plan that works. If you can't do it, I'll find someone who can. Footsteps approached the door. Alara stepped back, but not quickly enough. Marco emerged first, his face tight with barely controlled anger. He saw her and stopped. Great, he muttered. Perfect. Then he brushed past her and disappeared down the hallway. Roman appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, jaw shadowed with stubble, shirt wrinkled in a way she suspected was unusual for him. How much did you hear? He asked. Enough to know I'm causing problems. You're not causing anything. The Hollows caused this years ago. Roman stepped aside, gesturing her into the study. Coffee? Is Marco right? Alara stayed in the doorway. Is this insane? Roman poured 2 cups, handed her one. Probably, but insane doesn't mean impossible. He thinks you're doing this because of me. He's not entirely wrong. The honesty surprised her. Alara accepted the coffee, finally entering the room. The study looked like Roman hadn't left it in days. Papers scattered across the desk, multiple laptops open, security footage frozen on screens, facility blueprints taped to the wall. You've been working on this all week, she observed. Yes. Why? Roman leaned against the desk, studying her. How long were you with Declan Hollow? The question landed like a punch. 2 years, almost. And before him? Foster care until 18, couple years working retail, applied to paralegal programs. Alara's throat tightened. Met Declan at a legal aid fundraiser. He seemed like salvation, Roman finished. Someone who saw potential in you. Someone who made you feel valuable. Yes, that's how they work. Men like him. Roman set down his coffee. They find women who've been invisible their whole lives and they offer visibility, attention, resources, and by the time you realize the price, you're already trapped. Alara stared at him. You sound like you know. I've seen it. Different context, same pattern. Roman gestured toward the blueprints. Serena Vale probably felt the same way, grateful at first, special, until she wasn't useful anymore and became inconvenient. So you're saving her to prove a point. I'm saving her because no one else will. Roman's eyes hardened. The system failed her. Her family failed her. Society decided she was disposable, and the Hollows counted on that. They counted on no one caring enough to look. But you care. I'm aware of injustice when I see it. That's not the same thing. Roman said nothing for a moment, then, my sister died in a facility like that one. 23 years old, committed by her husband when she tried to leave him. Depression, they said. Danger to herself. She died 6 months later. Medication interaction, supposedly. His voice stayed flat, emotionless. No investigation. No accountability. Just a closed file and a man who remarried within a year. Alara's breath caught. Roman, I don't want sympathy. He straightened, moving back to the desk. I want results. Marco's right that this is complicated and dangerous, but he's wrong that it's impossible. Before Alara could respond, Nico appeared in the doorway. Boss, we've got movement. Roman's expression shifted instantly. Where? Hollows people. 3 teams canvassing neighborhoods near where she disappeared, showing photos, asking questions, professional operation. How close? 12 miles. Moving in a grid pattern. They'll reach the estates within 48 hours if they maintain pace. Alara felt the blood drain from her face. He's searching for me. Of course he is. Roman was already moving, pulling up security feeds on one of the laptops. You took evidence that could destroy him. He can't let that go public. I don't have the documents anymore. Alara's hands clenched. They were in my dress pocket when I ran. They're gone. Probably destroyed by the rain. Roman and Nico exchanged glances. That doesn't matter, Roman said carefully. You're still a witness. You still know what happened. That makes you a liability that needs to disappear. Alara finished. Her voice sounded distant in her own ears. Permanently. Which means we move faster. Roman turned to Nico. Pull everyone back to primary security perimeter. Lock down the estate. No one enters or leaves without clearance. And accelerate the veil extraction timeline. To when? 72 hours. Nico's eyes widened fractionally. Boss, that's what we have to work with. Make it happen. Nico left without further argument. Alara sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. This is my fault. I should leave. Go somewhere else. You don't need to. Go where? Roman interrupted. You have no money, no identification, no resources. Hollow's people are professional trackers with unlimited funding. You'd last maybe a day. Better than getting you killed. I'm not going to die. Roman crouched in front of her chair, forcing eye contact. Listen to me. Declan Hollow is dangerous because he has institutional protection. That protection evaporates the moment his crimes become public. So we don't run. We don't hide. We gather evidence, extract Serena, and expose everything before he can bury it. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's necessary. There's a difference. Alara wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this violent, calculating man had any chance against the legal empire the Hollows commanded. But trust had betrayed her before. Trust had nearly killed her. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Accept help without waiting for the trap. Roman's expression softened slightly. I know, but you're going to have to learn. Because what comes next requires trusting people. And I can't do this alone. He stood, returning to the desk. Get some rest. Things are going to move fast now. Alara left the study in a daze, climbing stairs that felt steeper than before. Behind her, she could hear Roman making calls, sharp, efficient commands in Italian and English, mobilizing resources she couldn't comprehend. In her room, she collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across the city, Declan was searching for her. And somewhere in a psychiatric facility she'd never seen, another woman was drugged into oblivion, waiting for rescue she didn't know was coming. Alara closed her eyes and tried not to think about everything that could go wrong. The second week began with Marco appearing at breakfast. Alara had started eating downstairs, unable to tolerate isolation any longer. The dining room was massive, table that could seat 20, windows overlooking gardens she wasn't allowed to walk through yet. Nico usually brought food and disappeared. But this morning, Marco sat down across from her with coffee and a folder. We need to talk, he said without preamble. Okay. Roman's planning something that could get everyone killed. You understand that, right? Alara set down her fork. He explained the risks. Did he explain what happens if we fail? If we get caught breaking into that facility? Marco leaned forward. Federal charges, RICO prosecution, asset seizure, everything he's built for 30 years. Gone. Then don't help. Alara kept her voice level. I'll figure something else out. There is nothing else. That's the problem. Marco rubbed his face tiredly. Look, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because you need to understand what you're asking him to sacrifice. I didn't ask him to do anything. You showed up bleeding at his gates. That was asking. The words hit harder than intended. Alara's throat tightened. I didn't know where else to go. I know. Marco's voice softened slightly. And Roman can't help himself. He sees someone who needs saving, and he moves. It's gotten him into trouble before. Is that what happened to his sister? Marco went still. He told you about Lucia? A little. Then you know why he's doing this. Marco opened the folder, spreading photographs across the table. This is what we're up against. The images showed a sprawling facility surrounded by fencing, guard stations, security cameras, clinical buildings painted in soothing colors, manicured lawns. Everything looked calm, professional, legitimate. Riverside Wellness Center, Marco explained. Licensed psychiatric facility, 200 patients, staff of 80. 24-hour security, restricted access, state inspections every 6 months. Getting someone out without authorization is basically kidnapping, even if she was committed illegally. Especially then, because we can't prove it was illegal without exposing our sources and methods, which means we can't go through proper channels. Alara studied the photographs. So how do we do it? We? Marco raised an eyebrow. I'm not sitting here while you risk everything for me. You're injured and untrained. You'd be a liability. So train me. Marco stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. You've got spine, I'll give you that. Is that a yes? It's a we'll see. Marco gathered the photographs. First you heal completely, then we assess whether you're capable, and then, maybe, we discuss involvement. When do we move on the facility? 60 hours, give or take. Marco stood. Roman wants it done before Hollow's search teams get close enough to become a problem. After he left, Alara sat alone with her cold breakfast, mind racing. 60 hours, 2.5 days. Not enough time to prepare, not enough time to plan, barely enough time to understand what they were attempting. But it was the time they had. She found Roman in the basement shooting range later that afternoon. The sound of gunfire echoed through concrete walls as she descended stairs she hadn't known existed. Roman stood in the third lane, firing methodically at paper targets downrange. Each shot landed center mass with mechanical precision. He sensed her presence and lowered the weapon. You're supposed to rest, he said. Marco showed me the facility. Roman engaged the weapon's safety and set it down. And? I want to help. No. You don't get to make that decision alone. I do when it's my operation, and your presence increases risk. Roman removed his hearing protection. This isn't negotiable, Alara. Nothing about me is negotiable anymore. She moved closer. Declan made that decision when he put his hands around my throat, so I'm not sitting upstairs playing victim while other people risk their lives. This isn't about playing victim. Then what is it about? Her voice rose. Because from where I'm standing, you're treating me exactly like Declan did, making decisions for me, controlling what I'm allowed to do, telling me it's for my own protection. Roman's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? You won't let me leave. You won't let me help. You've decided what's best and expect me to comply. Alara's hands clenched. I appreciate everything you've done, but I'm not your responsibility. I'm a person who gets to choose her own risks. Even if that choice gets you killed? Especially then, because it's my choice. Silence stretched between them, broken only by ventilation systems humming through concrete. Roman stared at her with an expression she couldn't read. Frustration, respect, something else entirely. Finally, you ever fire a weapon? No? Then you start training, today, every day until we move. He picked up the pistol, checking it was unloaded before handing it to her. You're not coming on the extraction, but you can learn to protect yourself while we're gone. It wasn't agreement, but it was compromise. Alara accepted the weapon. It felt heavier than expected, cold and foreign in her hands. Safety's here, Roman indicated. Never point it at anything you don't intend to destroy. Finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Understand? Yes. For the next 2 hours, Roman taught her basics. Stance, grip, sight alignment. How to breathe, how to absorb recoil, how to clear malfunctions. He was patient but demanding, correcting mistakes immediately, never accepting anything less than proper form. By the time they finished, Alara's hands ached and her ears rang despite protection, but she'd put 5 rounds through the center of a target at 15 feet. Not terrible, Roman allowed. High praise. Don't get cocky. You're still useless in an actual firefight. But something in his tone suggested he was impressed. Tomorrow we do it again, and the day after, until muscle memory replaces thought. Upstairs, they found Marco and Nico in the study reviewing blueprints. Both men looked up as they entered. She can shoot, Roman announced. Marco's eyebrows rose. You taught her? Basics. She learns fast. Doesn't mean she's ready for field work. I'm aware she's staying here during extraction. Roman moved to the desk. Where are we on personnel? 3 teams, Nico explained, pointing to the blueprint. Team 1 creates distraction at the main entrance. Fake emergency, draws security response. Team 2 handles technical override on the security system. Team 3 enters through the service entrance here. He indicated the eastern side. Locates Vale and extracts via medical transport. Timeline: 22 minutes from first contact to clear, assuming everything goes perfectly. It won't, Marco added. Factor another 8 minutes for complications. Call it 30 total. Security response time: local police 12 minutes, state police 25, FBI field office in Atlanta 90 minutes minimum. Nico traced routes on a map. We have a window, but it's tight. Roman studied the plans in silence. Alara watched him process information, his mind working through variables she couldn't begin to calculate. Finally, he nodded. It works. Barely, but it works. He looked at Marco. Your team leader. Nico runs technical. I'll handle the distraction. Boss, you don't need to eat. I'm not sending people into danger I won't face myself. Roman's tone left no room for argument. We move tomorrow night. 2200 hours. Everyone clear on their roles? Nods around the table. Good. Get some sleep. It's going to be a long night. The meeting dissolved. Alara started to leave, but Roman caught her arm. You stay in the house tomorrow, he said quietly. Doors locked. Security active. If anything goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. If anything goes wrong, he continued, Nico's left instructions with the backup team. They'll get you somewhere safe. I don't want somewhere safe. I want you to come back. Something flickered in Roman's eyes. I'll do my best. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. She paced her room, adrenaline and fear churning through her system in equal measure. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Either they'd succeed and Serena would be free, or they'd fail and everyone would pay the price. She thought about Serena, imagined her trapped in that facility, medicated into compliance, convinced the world had abandoned her. 2 years of pharmaceutical fog and institutional cruelty. 2 years of waiting for rescue that never came. Until now. Around midnight, Alara gave up on sleep and went downstairs. The house was dark except for light leaking from Roman's study. She found him at his desk, still reviewing plans, coffee going cold beside him. Couldn't sleep either? She asked from the doorway. Roman looked up. Too much to finalize. Can I come in? It's your house too. Alara settled into the chair across from him. Are you scared? Always. Roman leaned back. Anyone who says they're not scared before an operation is either lying or stupid. But you do it anyway. Because fear is just information. It tells you where the risks are. What you do with that information, that's what matters. Alara studied him in the low light. Marco thinks you're doing this because of your sister. Marco thinks too much. Is he wrong? Roman was silent for a long moment. Lucia died because no one fought for her. Her husband had lawyers, connections, money. She had nothing except a brother who was too young and too powerless to help. His voice stayed flat, controlled. So yes, maybe I'm doing this for her, for the person I couldn't save 23 years ago. That's not a bad reason. It's a dangerous one. Emotional decisions get people killed. Is that what this is? An emotional decision? Roman met her eyes directly. Yes, and also the right decision. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Thunder rumbled distantly outside. Another storm rolling in from the coast. Alara listened to the sound and wondered if she'd ever hear thunder again without remembering the night she'd collapsed at these gates. I need to tell you something, she said finally, in case tomorrow goes wrong. Nothing's going wrong. But if it does, Alara forced the words out. Thank you for seeing me as human, for not treating me like damaged property. That matters more than you know. Roman's expression softened. You're not damaged, Alara. You're surviving. There's a difference. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. I know. But feelings aren't facts. He stood, moving to the window. Rain had started, light drops pattering against glass. When this is over, when Serena's safe and the hollows are exposed, what do you want? The question surprised her. I don't know. I haven't thought past tomorrow. Start thinking, because you're going to survive this, and survivors need plans. Alara joined him at the window. Outside, the estate grounds disappeared into darkness and rain. I want Harbor House. What? The shelter I mentioned for women escaping abuse, real resources, real protection, not just emergency beds and temporary solutions. She turned to face him. I want to build something that actually works, something Declan and men like him can't destroy. Roman studied her. That's ambitious. You asked what I wanted. And if I said I'd help you build it, I'd ask why you keep helping me. Because you remind me that not everything worth doing has to be profitable. Roman's voice dropped slightly. And because watching you fight back gives me hope that the world isn't entirely fucked. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was quite ready to name. Then Alara smiled faintly. That's surprisingly optimistic for a criminal. Don't tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation. They stood together in silence, watching rain darken the world outside, neither acknowledging the way the space between them felt different now. Heavier. More complicated. Finally, Roman cleared his throat. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Alara nodded and left. Behind her, Roman returned to his desk and pulled out a file he hadn't shown anyone. Inside were photographs, surveillance images of Declan Hollow, his father, their associates. Names, addresses, routines, vulnerabilities. Because Roman hadn't told Alara the complete truth. Extracting Serena was step one, but destroying the Hollows utterly, making them pay for every woman they'd erased, every life they'd ruined, that required more than exposure. That required war. And Roman Varelli had been preparing for war since the moment Alara collapsed at his gates. The day of the extraction crept forward with agonizing slowness. Alara tried to occupy herself, reading, pacing, practicing the weapon drills Roman had taught her, but time felt liquid and unreal, stretching and compressing without pattern. Around noon, Marco found her in the garden courtyard where she'd finally been permitted to walk. Boss wants you in the armory, he said. Why? Didn't say. Just come. The armory was another room she hadn't known existed, deep in the estate's basement, behind a reinforced door that required both keypad and biometric access. Inside, weapons lined the walls, rifles, handguns, shotguns, equipment that suggested preparation for scenarios much worse than a facility extraction. Roman was testing communication equipment when she entered. Put this on, he said, handing her an earpiece. Channel 3. You'll be able to hear everything during the operation. I thought you wanted me isolated from... I changed my mind. Roman adjusted his own earpiece. If something goes wrong, you deserve to know immediately, not hours later when cleanup teams return. The gesture was small but significant. Marco raised an eyebrow but said nothing. For the next hour, they ran communication checks. Alara listened as teams reported in, confirming equipment, reviewing protocols, testing encrypted channels. The operation had dozens of moving parts, each dependent on the others. One failure could cascade into catastrophe. How do you stay calm? She asked Roman quietly. Practice. And accepting that you can't control everything. He met her eyes. You just control what you can and react to what you can't. That's terrifyingly zen. Welcome to operational planning. At 2,000 hours, the teams began moving out. Marco left first with the technical crew, then Nico with the extraction unit. Roman stayed until last, running through final checks with mechanical precision. Before leaving, he stopped in front of Alara. Stay in the safe room once we're gone, he instructed. It's behind the bookcase in my study. Reinforced walls, independent power, satellite communication. If anyone breaches the estate, nothing's breaching the estate. If anyone does, you lock yourself in and wait for backup. Clear? Clear. Roman hesitated, then, I'll see you in a few hours. You better. He left without looking back. Suddenly the house felt enormous and empty. Alara made her way to Roman's study, found the hidden safe room exactly where he'd indicated. Inside was exactly as described, small, reinforced, stocked with supplies. She settled at the communications console and activated Channel 3. Static crackled. Then Marco's voice. Team 1 in position. Nico. Team 2 standing by. Roman. Team 3 ready. Commence operation on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The extraction had begun. For the first 20 minutes, everything went according to plan. Alara listened as teams reported progress. Distraction created, security systems overridden, service entrance accessed. Nico's voice stayed calm, clinical, narrating their movement through the facility. Ground floor clear, proceeding to residential wing. Copy that. 2 minutes to target location. Eyes on security. 2 guards, both distracted by the main entrance response. Moving past, still clear. Then, we've got the room. Accessing now. Alara's heart hammered. This was it. The moment everything hinged on. A long silence. Then Nico's voice, tight with controlled urgency. Boss, we have a problem. Roman. What kind of problem? Vale's not here. The room's empty. Looks like it's been empty for days. Alara's blood went cold. Marco. That's impossible. Records show... I don't care what records show. The room is empty. Roman. Check the medical logs. Find out where she was transferred. Sounds of movement, papers rustling. Then Nico again. Transfer order dated 4 days ago. Patient moved to long-term secure facility in northern Georgia. Signed by... Fuck. Nico, who signed it? Everett Hollow, the judge. Silence fell across the channel. Then Roman, his voice dangerous. They moved her. They knew we were coming. How? Marco demanded. We've been careful. No leaks, no... Doesn't matter how. We're compromised. Roman's command voice cut through the confusion. All teams extract immediately. Marco, kill the security override and restore systems. Make it look like a technical glitch. Nico, get your people out now. Copy. Extracting. Alara listened in horror as teams retreated. The operation was collapsing. Serena was gone, moved beyond reach, and somehow the Hollows had known to move her, which meant they knew about Roman, knew about the plan, knew everything. Team 1 clear. Team 2 exfiltrating. 30 seconds. Team 3, wait. We've got company. Black SUVs entering the facility. Multiple vehicles. Roman, how many? At least 4, professional configuration. This isn't local security. That's a welcoming party. Move faster. Moving! We're... Contact! Shots fired! Gunfire erupted through the comm channel. Shouting. More shots. Alara gripped the console edge, her knuckles white. Nico! Roman's voice sharp. Nico, report. We're pinned. Service entrance compromised. They were waiting for us, boss. Fall back to secondary exit. Team 1, provide suppression fire. Marco, I need that security system back online now. Working on it. More gunfire. Someone screaming. The sounds of combat transmitted through tiny earpieces felt surreal and terrifying. Man down! Paulie's hit! Grab him. Nobody gets left. They're pushing forward. Boss, we need backup. Roman. 2 minutes out. Hold position. More chaos. More shots. Then Marco's voice strained. Security's back up. Facility's going into lockdown. You've got maybe 90 seconds before those doors seal. Copy. Nico, on me. Fighting retreat to the north exit. Move. Sounds of running, breathing, someone cursing. More shots, closer now. Then an explosion, massive, deafening through the comms. Silence. Roman? Alara whispered into the dead channel. Roman. Nothing. Anybody respond, please. Static hissed mockingly back at her. Alara sat frozen in the safe room, staring at the console, waiting for voices that didn't come. Her mind spun through terrible possibilities. Capture, injury, death. The extraction had been a trap. Someone had betrayed them, and now everyone she'd allowed herself to trust might be dead because of it. Then the channel crackled to life. Back! Say again, falling back. We're clear of the facility. Roman's voice. Alive. Alara's breath released in a sob she hadn't known she was holding. Casualties? Roman demanded. Paulie took rounds to the vest, bruised ribs but mobile. Everyone else intact. Get to the vehicles. We're gone in 60 seconds. More sounds of movement. Engine starting. Tires on gravel. Then Roman again. Alara, you there? She keyed the microphone with shaking hands. I'm here. Lock everything down. We're coming back. ETA 40 minutes. What happened? Later, just stay in that room until I personally come get you. Understood? Yes. The channel went silent again. Alara sat in darkness, listening to her own heartbeat, trying to process what had just happened. They'd failed. Serena was still imprisoned. The Hollows knew about the rescue attempt. And somehow, impossibly, they'd been waiting, which meant everything was about to get much worse. 43 minutes later, she heard vehicles in the driveway, heavy footsteps, voices shouting orders, then a knock on the safe room door. Alara, it's me. She opened the door. Roman stood there, covered in concrete dust and smoke residue, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Behind him, men were moving through the house, securing entrances, checking systems. What happened? Alara asked. Roman stepped into the safe room and closed the door. In the confined space, he seemed bigger, more dangerous. Exhausted, but unbroken. We walked into an ambush. Professional security team waiting exactly where we planned to extract. Serena had been moved days before we got there. He ran a hand through his hair. Someone told them we were coming. How? I don't know yet, but I will. His eyes were hard. Marco's reviewing all communications. Nico's checking for surveillance we missed. We'll find the leak. And Serena? Gone. Transferred to a facility we don't have intelligence on. Could be anywhere in Georgia. Roman's jaw tightened. The Hollows outsmarted us. Alara sank against the wall. This is my fault. Stop. It is. You risked everything, and we failed, tonight. But this isn't over. Roman moved closer, forcing her to meet his eyes. The Hollows just showed us they're scared. Scared enough to move their prisoner, scared enough to lay a trap. That means we're closer than they want us to be. Or it means they're destroying evidence. Maybe, but it also means they're reactive now instead of proactive. That's an advantage. Some advantage. Everyone almost died. But they didn't. Roman's voice softened slightly. Alara, listen to me. Tonight was a setback. A bad one. But we're not done. We're just getting started. Before she could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, you need to see this. They followed him to the study where multiple laptops displayed surveillance feeds, traffic cameras, facility footage. Marco pointed to one screen showing the aftermath of their extraction attempt. Local police arrived 17 minutes after we left. Federal agents 23 minutes after that. They're treating it as a terrorist threat, locking down the facility, interviewing staff. Expected, Roman said. Yeah, but look at this. Marco pulled up different footage. This is from a traffic camera 2 miles from the facility, taken during our extraction. The screen showed a black sedan, expensive, sitting at an intersection. In the driver's seat, clearly visible, despite the grainy footage, Declan Hollow. He'd been there, watching. He knew, Alara whispered. He knew exactly when and where we'd be. Which means he's been tracking us, Marco said. Somehow, and if he knows about the extraction attempt, he probably knows where we are, Roman finished. He knows about this estate. The words fell into silence like stones into deep water. Then Roman moved, all hesitation gone. Marco, triple security, armed guards on every entrance. Surveillance at maximum. I want motion sensors, thermal, everything. Nico, contact our people in Atlanta. Start building intelligence on every facility within 200 miles. And someone find out how Declan Hollow is tracking us. People scattered to follow orders. Roman turned to Alara. Pack anything you can't leave behind. We might need to move fast. Where would we go? I have properties. Safe houses. Places even my own people don't know about. He paused. But I'm not running yet. First, I need to understand how deep this goes. Over the next 6 hours, the estate transformed into a fortress. Armed men patrolled grounds. Technology hummed through walls. Everyone moved with the tense efficiency of people expecting attack. Around dawn, Nico appeared with a laptop. Found something, he announced. They gathered in the study. Nico pulled up a file showing cellular data patterns. Someone's been pinging towers near our location for the past week. Sophisticated tracking, commercial grade, not law enforcement. He zoomed in on specific data points. The pings correlate exactly with moments when Alara moved through the house, like they're following a tracker. Alara's stomach dropped. A tracker? On me? On something you're carrying. They searched her room, her clothes, the few possessions she'd accumulated. Found nothing. Then Roman went still. Your dress, he said quietly, the one you wore the night you arrived. Where is it? Storage, probably. Why? They found it in a basement closet, still torn and stained. Roman examined it carefully, running his hands along seams. Then he found it, a tiny device embedded in the hem stitching. Professional. Nearly invisible. GPS tracker, Nico confirmed. Battery life, maybe 2 weeks. Someone planted this before she ran. Alara stared at the device. Declan knew I'd run. He was ready. And he's been watching this location ever since you got here. Roman crushed the tracker under his boot. Which means he knows about tonight, about the failed extraction, about everything. So what do we do? Marco asked. Roman was silent for a long moment, staring at the crushed electronics. Then his expression hardened into something frightening. We stop playing defense, he said quietly, and we give Declan Hollow exactly what he's asking for. Which is? Roman looked at Alara. A war. The war began at dawn. Roman stood in his study watching surveillance feeds multiply across screens like cancer cells dividing. Every camera angle showed the same thing, black vehicles circling the estate perimeter, not entering, not attacking, just circling, predators establishing territory. Count? He asked Marco without turning. 16 vehicles, maybe 40 personnel. Marco's voice was tight. Professional configuration, ex-military probably, Hollow's not playing around anymore. Neither are we. Alara appeared in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, exhaustion carved into her face. They're outside. Have been since 4 a.m. Roman finally turned from the screens. They're establishing a perimeter, waiting for orders. Orders to do what? Starve us out. Wait until we make a mistake. Maybe storm the estate if they get impatient. Roman's jaw tightened. Declan wants you back. And he wants me dead. This is how he plans to accomplish both. So we're trapped. For now. Marco cleared his throat. Boss, we've got another problem. Nico ran background on the security team outside. They're not just hired muscle. Then what are they? Blackwater veterans, triple canopy, executive protection specialists who went private. Marco pulled up dossiers on the screen. These aren't thugs. They're trained operators with kill records and legal immunity clauses in their contracts. Roman studied the faces. Hard men with dead eyes and resumes written in foreign blood. Who's funding this? Officially? A security consulting firm registered in Delaware. But the payment trail leads back to one of Judge Hollow's shell companies. So the judge is directly involved now. Looks that way. Which means this isn't just Declan cleaning up loose ends. This is the whole family protecting their empire. Alara moved closer to the screen, staring at the vehicles prowling Roman's property. How long can we hold? Depends on what you mean by hold. Roman gestured at the estate layout. We've got reinforced structures, armed personnel, supplies for maybe 2 weeks. But we're not equipped for prolonged siege warfare, and eventually they'll escalate. Escalate how? Fire, explosives, chemical agents. Roman's voice stayed flat. These people have no legal oversight and unlimited funding. They'll do whatever works. Silence fell across the study. Then Alara. So we're fucked. We're disadvantaged, Roman corrected. Not the same thing. Sounds like the same thing. It's not. Because they're making a mistake. Roman turned back to the surveillance feeds. They're assuming we're static targets, that we'll sit here and wait for them to act. And we won't? No. We're going to give them exactly what they want. Roman's expression hardened. We're going to make them think they've won. Marco's eyes narrowed. What are you planning? A surrender. Public, documented, complete. Roman looked at Alara. Specifically, I'm going to hand you over to Declan Hollow. The words hit like a physical blow. Alara staggered back a step. What? Not actually, but he needs to believe I am. That's insane. It's tactical. Roman moved to the desk, pulling up blueprints of the city. Declan wants you. He spent weeks hunting you. If I offer to negotiate terms, neutral location, public space, witnesses, he'll come. His ego won't let him refuse. And then what? Alara's voice shook. You just let him take me? Then we expose everything, publicly, with cameras and witnesses and evidence he can't bury. Roman's finger traced routes on the map. The Justice Foundation Gala. 3 days from now. Every important person in Georgia will be there, including Declan and his father. Marco leaned forward. You want to stage this at the gala? I want to destroy them at the gala, in front of everyone. Make it impossible to cover up. That's... Marco stopped, processing. That might actually work. It's suicide, Alara interrupted. Declan will never negotiate. He'll just kill both of us. Not in front of 300 witnesses and live media coverage. Roman met her eyes. He spent years building his reputation. He won't risk destroying it with public violence. His whole power structure depends on legitimacy. You're betting my life on his vanity. I'm betting on human psychology. Declan needs you silenced, yes, but he also needs to win. Needs to prove he's smarter, stronger, untouchable. That requires an audience. Alara wanted to argue, but couldn't find the logic flaw. Roman's plan was insane, dangerous, and possibly their only option. How do we even get into the gala? She asked finally. Same way we infiltrate anything. Money and connections. Roman pulled up a guest list. I've attended before. Made donations. The foundation knows my name even if they pretend not to. Getting entry isn't the problem. Then what is? Getting out alive. Marco straightened. We'll need backup. Serious backup. And Serena. If we're going public, we need her testimony. Still looking for her, Nico's voice came from the doorway. He'd been silent until now, monitoring communications. But I've got something else, something bad. Everyone turned. Nico held up his tablet, displaying medical records. Serena Vale isn't missing. She's dead. The words landed like grenades. What? Alara whispered. Death certificate filed 6 days ago. Official cause, suicide. Medication overdose at the secure facility. Nico's face was grim. Signed by 3 doctors and notarized by a state official. Roman grabbed the tablet, scanning the document. His jaw tightened incrementally. This is fake. Of course it's fake. But it's also official, filed with the state, completely legal on paper. Nico met Roman's eyes. They killed her, boss, and made it disappear into bureaucracy. Alara felt the room tilt. They killed her because of us, because we tried to extract her. They killed her because she was evidence, Roman corrected, but his voice held an edge she'd never heard before. Something cold and furious. And they knew we were getting close. So it's over. Alara sank into a chair. She's gone. The evidence is gone. We have nothing. We have you. I'm not enough. I have no proof. No documents. Just my word against theirs. Her laugh came out broken. And I'm exactly the kind of witness they've spent years teaching people not to believe. Foster kid. No family. History of instability they've probably been manufacturing in medical records. Roman set down the tablet. Then we make them confess. How? By making Declan angry enough to forget his mask. By pushing him until he breaks in front of everyone. Roman's eyes were dark. The Hollows have spent decades hiding behind legitimacy. We strip that away. Make them react like the monsters they are. Marco frowned. That's extremely risky. Everything's risky now. Roman turned back to the surveillance feeds showing the circling vehicles. We have 3 days. Nico, keep searching for anything on Serena's death. Witnesses, staff who saw something, forensics that don't add up. Marco, I need detailed security layouts for the gala venue. Exits, camera positions, security personnel, everything. And me? Alara asked. Roman looked at her steadily. You prepare to face Declan Hollow one more time. And this time, you don't run. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation that felt like slowly loading a gun. Roman made calls to contacts Alara didn't know he had. Journalists, political operatives, activists who'd been quietly building cases against judicial corruption for years. Each conversation was careful, coded, revealing just enough to generate interest without exposing the full plan. Meanwhile, The vehicles outside maintained their vigil, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, but always present, a constant reminder of the walls closing in. Alara spent hours in the shooting range, putting rounds through paper targets until her hands stopped shaking when she pulled the trigger. Roman watched sometimes, offering corrections, but mostly letting her work through the fear in her own way. On the second night, she found him in the study staring at a photograph she'd never seen before. A young woman with dark hair and Roman's eyes, smiling at something beyond the camera's frame. "Lucia?" Alara asked quietly. Roman nodded. Taken 6 months before she died. She was still fighting then. Still believed she could escape. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just make sure her death meant something." He set down the photograph. "That's all any of us can do. Make sure the people we lose aren't forgotten." "Is that why you're doing this? For her?" "For her, for you, for Serena, for every woman the system decided was disposable." Roman's voice stayed level. "Pick whatever reason makes sense. They're all true." Alara wanted to say something meaningful, something that captured the gratitude and guilt and terror churning through her. Instead, she just stood beside him in silence until Marco interrupted with updates. The morning of the gala arrived with cold clarity. Alara woke early, adrenaline already flooding her system. Today would end either with the hollows destroyed or with her dead. Possibly both. The uncertainty was paralyzing and liberating in equal measure. Someone had left a garment bag hanging on her door. Inside, a black dress. Simple, elegant, expensive. The kind of thing designed to make a statement without screaming for attention. Attached was a note in Roman's handwriting. "You're not his victim anymore. Make them see that." Alara showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away 2 years of fear that had settled into her bones. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The bruises had faded. Her hair had grown back to a length that looked intentional instead of desperate. She looked older, harder, survivable. She dressed carefully, each movement deliberate. The dress fit perfectly. Roman had somehow known her exact measurements. She applied minimal makeup, just enough to look polished rather than painted. When she finished, the woman in the mirror could have belonged anywhere. Could have been anyone. That was the point. Downstairs, the house hummed with controlled chaos. Marco briefed security teams. Nico monitored communications. Roman stood at the center, directing everything with calm precision. He looked up when Alara entered and something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "You look—" He stopped. "Dangerous?" "Exactly right." Roman handed her an earpiece. "Communication line, same channel as before. You'll have backup even if you can't see them." "How many people are coming?" 8 inside the venue, another 12 in perimeter positions. Enough to extract you if things go wrong, not enough to trigger security alarms. "And if Declan doesn't show?" "He'll show. I sent the invitation through channels he monitors, promised to deliver you in exchange for calling off his security team." Roman's jaw tightened. His ego won't let him refuse. "You're assuming a lot about his psychology." "I've spent 30 years reading people. Trust me on this." Alara wanted to. Wanted to believe this impossible plan would work. But trust had betrayed her before. Trust had nearly killed her. "What if I freeze?" she asked quietly. "What if I see him and I can't do this?" Roman stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Then you leave. We extract you and find another way." "There is no other way." "There's always another way. You just might not like it." He held her gaze. "But I'm not letting you die for revenge, Alara. This only works if you choose it. Understand?" She understood and chose anyway. "Let's go." The drive into Savannah felt surreal. They took separate vehicles, Roman in one, Alara with Marco, and 2 security personnel in another. The black cars that had been circling the estate followed at a distance, maintaining pressure without engaging. "They think they've won," Marco observed from the driver's seat. "Think we're cornered and desperate." "We are cornered and desperate," Alara replied. "Yeah, but they don't need to know we know that." The gala was being held at the Forsyth Ballroom, a historic venue dripping with old money and older politics. By the time they arrived, the entrance was already crowded with expensive cars and expensively dressed people. Cameras flashed. Reporters called questions to recognizable faces. Alara stepped from the vehicle feeling exposed despite the crowd. Or maybe because of it. All these people, and none of them would care if she died. They'd just call it a scandal and move on. Roman appeared beside her, offering his arm. Ready? No. Good. Neither am I. They walked toward the entrance together. Alara could feel eyes tracking them. Security, guests, people who recognized Roman's face from newspapers and rumor. The crowd parted slightly, instinctively creating space around the dangerous man and his unknown companion. Inside, the ballroom was exactly what Alara had expected. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, wealthy people pretending their money made them important. Waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers that probably cost more than Alara had earned in a month of real work. There, Roman nodded toward the far side of the ballroom. Declan Hollow stood surrounded by admirers, wearing a tuxedo that fit like armor, and a smile that had probably won him votes. He looked successful, confident, untouchable. Everything Alara remembered, and worse. Then he saw her. The smile froze. Just for a second. Long enough for Alara to catch the flash of shock before his mask reasserted itself. He started across the ballroom toward them, his admirers falling away as he moved. "Here we go," Marco murmured through the earpiece. Declan stopped 3 feet away, studying Alara with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, calculation, something darker beneath. "Alara." His voice was warm, concerned, the voice he'd used when he was pretending to be human. "My God, I've been so worried. Are you all right?" The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. "I'm fine." Alara's voice came out steadier than expected. "Better than fine, actually. Where have you been? The police have been searching. Your disappearance. People were concerned." "Were you concerned, Declan?" His eyes hardened fractionally. "Of course. I care about you. Despite everything. Despite trying to have me committed to a psychiatric facility?" The words landed in the space between them like physical objects. Around them, nearby conversations died as people started paying attention. Declan's smile never wavered, but his voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "You're confused. The stress has... I'm not confused, and neither was Serena Vale before you had her killed." Now people were definitely listening. Declan's mask cracked slightly, fury bleeding through. "You need help, Alara. Professional help. Let me..." "Touch her and you die." Roman's voice cut through, calm and absolute. Declan finally seemed to register Roman's presence. His expression shifted, politician's charm disappearing entirely. "Varelli, I should have known. You've been hiding her. Protecting her. Different verb, same result. She's mentally unstable, dangerous to herself. I have documentation. You have forgeries," Roman interrupted. "Just like you had for Serena Vale. Just like you probably have for however many other women you've erased over the years." The conversation was getting louder, more people turning to watch. Exactly what Roman had planned. Declan's hands clenched. "This is slander. I could have you arrested for... For what? Telling the truth?" Roman stepped forward slightly. "Call the police, please. I'd love to discuss your activities in front of law enforcement." "You have no proof." "Don't I?" The question hung in the air. Declan's eyes flicked between Roman and Alara, calculating, trying to figure out what they actually had. "You're bluffing," he said finally. "Am I?" Roman pulled a slim folder from his jacket. "Medical records from Riverside Wellness. Commitment papers with your father's signature. Transfer orders. Serena's death certificate filed days after we attempted extraction." He held it just out of Declan's reach. "All very official. All very damning." Declan lunged for the folder. Security moved instantly. Not Roman's people, but venue security, responding to the sudden violence. They grabbed Declan's arms, pulling him back while guests gasped and cameras started flashing. "Get your hands off me," Declan snarled, the mask finally shattering completely. "Do you know who I am?" "Assistant District Attorney Declan Hollow," Roman said calmly. "Son of Judge Everett Hollow. And the man who's been systematically imprisoning and murdering women who try to leave him." "That's a lie." "Then sue me for defamation. I'll see you in court." The room had gone completely silent. Every phone was raised, recording. Every eye locked on the scene unfolding. Then another voice cut through. "Declan, what's happening? Judge Everett Hollow pushed through the crowd, his face tight with controlled fury. He was older, harder, with eyes that had seen decades of courtrooms and knew how to read a situation instantly. He read this one and his expression went cold. "Father," Declan straightened, trying to recover. "This is a disaster," the judge finished. He turned to Roman. "Mr. Varelli, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. Your son is a predator. You've been covering for him, and we have proof." The judge's eyes narrowed. "What kind of proof?" "The kind that ends careers, destroys legacies, puts people in federal prison." Roman held up the folder. "And it's already been copied to journalists, activists, and federal prosecutors. So even if something happens to us tonight, the truth comes out." Alara watched the judge's face as understanding crashed over him. Not surprise. Recognition. He'd known. Maybe not the details, but the shape of his son's crimes, and he'd enabled them anyway. "You're making a mistake," the judge said quietly. "The mistake was yours. 20 years ago. When you signed the first false commitment order and decided your family's reputation mattered more than women's lives." The judge's hand moved to his pocket. Fast, instinctive. "Gun!" Marco's voice exploded through the earpiece. Everything happened at once. The judge pulled a small revolver. Roman shoved Alara backward. Security personnel from both sides surged forward. Guests screamed and dove for cover. The gunshot sounded impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Alara hit the floor hard, marble cold against her palms. Her ears rang. She looked up, expecting to see Roman bleeding, but he was already moving, tackling the judge as Marco disarmed him with brutal efficiency. Then she saw the blood. Not Roman's blood. Declan's. He stood frozen, staring down at the red spreading across his white shirt. His father had been aiming for Roman, but Declan had moved, instinctively stepping between them, and taken the bullet meant for someone else. "Father!" Declan's voice came out confused, hurt. "You?" Judge Hollow stared at his son, with an expression Alara would remember forever. Not horror, not grief. Calculation. Weighing whether Declan dead might actually solve more problems than alive. Then Declan collapsed. Chaos erupted completely. Guests fled toward exits. Security tackled the judge. Police sirens wailed outside, and Alara knelt on expensive marble watching the man who tried to destroy her bleed out while his father showed no emotion at all. Roman crouched beside her. "We need to move. Now. He's dying. And the police are coming if we're here when they arrive. I want to watch him die." Alara's voice sounded distant, not quite her own. "I want him to know I survived." Alara, She stood, walking to where Declan lay surrounded by venue staff trying to apply pressure to the wound. His eyes found hers, still conscious, still aware. "You were supposed to disappear," he whispered. "I gave you everything." "You gave me nothing. You tried to erase me." "Same thing." Alara stared down at him, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief, just emptiness where fear used to live. "Serena Vale," she said quietly. "Say her name." "What?" "The woman you killed. Say her name." Declan's eyes hardened even as blood soaked through his shirt. "Go to hell." "Already been there. You sent me there." Alara leaned closer. "But I came back, and you're dying, so I guess I won." Police burst through the entrance. Someone was shouting orders. Roman grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her away as cops surrounded the judge and paramedics rushed toward Declan. They made it to a side exit just as the first wave of law enforcement flooded the ballroom. Outside, Marco had a vehicle waiting. They piled in, tires screaming as they pulled away from the venue. "That went well," Marco said dryly. "Declan's been shot. The judge just committed attempted murder in front of 200 witnesses." Roman's voice was tight. "Define well." The evidence is public. The confession is recorded. Multiple angles. Multiple witnesses. Marco glanced in the rear view. "The Hollows are done." Alara stared out the window, watching Savannah blur past. "Is he dead?" "Don't know yet." "Will he survive?" "Maybe. Gut shot. 50-50 odds." She processed that. Didn't know which outcome she preferred. They drove in silence until they reached a safe house Alara hadn't known existed. Industrial district, anonymous building, the kind of place that looked abandoned from outside but hummed with generators inside. Marco disappeared to monitor news coverage. Roman led Alara to a second-floor room with windows overlooking the empty street. "You did it," he said finally. "You faced him. You survived." His father shot him. "Yeah, that wasn't in the plan." "Why would he—" Alara stopped, understanding. He was going to let Declan die, rather than see their name destroyed. Some people value reputation more than family. Roman leaned against the doorframe. The judge spent decades building legitimacy. He'd sacrifice his own son before losing it. That's monstrous. That's power, real power, the kind that eats everything around it. Alara sat heavily on the edge of the bed. Adrenaline was fading, leaving behind exhaustion and something else. Loss, maybe. The strange grief of surviving something she'd expected to die from. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now federal prosecutors take over. The evidence is public. Too many witnesses to bury. The Hollows will try to fight it, but no." Alara looked up. "I mean, what happens to me?" Roman was quiet for a moment. "Whatever you want." "I don't know what I want anymore. Everything I thought I wanted was just about surviving. Now that I have—" Her voice cracked. "I don't know who I am without him hunting me." "Then figure it out. You have time now." "Do I? Or is there another monster waiting to—" "Stop." Roman moved closer, crouching to meet her eyes. "Listen to me. What Declan did to you doesn't define you. How you survived it doesn't define you. You get to choose what comes next." "What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again. That's the whole point." His voice softened. "You're not trapped anymore, Alara. That's what tonight meant. Not revenge. Freedom." She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel the liberation he described. Instead, she just felt empty. Like the part of her that had been fighting for so long didn't know how to stop. "I need to sleep," she said finally. Roman nodded and left her alone. Alara lay down fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the city moved through its normal rhythms. Inside, her mind circled the same questions without answers. She'd survived, but survival wasn't victory. And somewhere in a hospital, Declan Hollow was either dying or healing, and she couldn't decide which outcome would hurt less. Her earpiece crackled. She'd forgotten to remove it. Marco's voice came through, distant and tired. "Boss, news update. Declan's in surgery. Judge is in custody. Media's calling it the biggest corruption scandal in Georgia history." Roman's response was muffled. Then Marco again. "And boss? We've got a problem. Bigger than the Hollows." "What kind of problem?" A pause that stretched too long. "Serena Vale isn't dead. That death certificate was forged. She's alive. And she just surfaced in Atlanta with a lawyer and about 50 reporters." The words filtered through Alara's exhausted brain slowly. Serena was alive. Alive, and apparently ready to talk, which meant everything was about to change again. Alara closed her eyes and wondered if freedom would ever feel like anything other than waiting for the next disaster. Outside, dawn was breaking over Savannah. And in a hospital across town, Declan Hollow opened his eyes in post-operative haze and whispered a name that would change everything one final time. Not Alara's name, not his father's. Someone else entirely. Someone no one had. The name Declan whispered in his hospital bed was Elena Marsh. Roman stood in the industrial safe house 3 hours after the gala, staring at Marco's laptop while that name burned itself into his consciousness. Elena Marsh, Chief of Staff to Governor Patricia Wyndham, political operative with connections spanning 3 decades. A woman so deeply embedded in Georgia's power structure that her phone calls could end careers before breakfast. "Explain this," Roman said quietly. Marco pulled up surveillance footage from the hospital. Declan regained consciousness 90 minutes ago. First thing he did was ask for his lawyer. Second thing, before his lawyer even arrived, he made a phone call. Hospital staff thought he was calling family. Marco hit play. Declan's voice, weak but urgent, came through speakers. "Elena, it's me. Everything's compromised. The girl talked. Varelli has evidence. My father—" A pause, labored breathing. You need to activate contingency protocols. All of them. A woman's voice responded, crisp and efficient. Is the evidence public? Some of it, not everything, but enough to... Then we contain it. Stay quiet. Let me handle this. Elena, my father shot me. He was going to let me die to protect. Your father made a tactical error. I'll address it. Her tone shifted, becoming something colder. Declan, listen carefully. You don't speak to anyone. Not police, not prosecutors, not your own lawyer. Understood? But, understood. Yes. The call ended. Marco froze the playback. Elena Marsh has been covering for the Hollows for at least 15 years. Maybe longer. She's not just connected to them. She's the architect. Alara appeared in the doorway, still wearing the black dress from the gala. Architect of what? Everything. Roman turned to face her. The psychiatric commitments, the falsified records, the shell companies paying for facilities. He gestured at the screen. Judge Hollow had power, but Elena had infrastructure. She built the system that made women disappear. How many women? We don't know yet, but Serena wasn't the first, and you weren't going to be the last. Alara moved closer to the laptop, studying Elena Marsh's official photo. Mid-50s, expensive haircut, the kind of face that looked trustworthy on television. Why would she help them? Blackmail, probably, or partnership. Marco pulled up financial records. The Hollows have been funneling campaign donations through Elena's network for years. She gets political influence. They get protection. Everyone wins except the women they destroy. Not anymore. Roman's voice hardened. If Elena's the architect, then she's the real target. Declan was just a weapon. His father was just cover. But Elena, she's the one who made this possible. So what do? We take her down. Publicly. Permanently. Roman straightened, mind already moving through tactical options. But first we need Serena. She's the proof that their system failed. A living witness they thought was dead. Marco nodded. She's at the federal building in Atlanta with her lawyer, under protective custody after she went public. FBI's involved now. Can you get us access? Probably, but boss... Marco hesitated. Elena knows we're coming. That phone call wasn't just about damage control. It was a warning. She's mobilizing. Let her mobilize. We're not hiding anymore. Nico appeared from the hallway carrying printouts. Media's exploding. Gala footage is everywhere. Judge Hollow's arrest. Declan getting shot. The corruption allegations. He spread the papers across the table. But Elena's already spinning it. Look at this. The printout showed a press release on Governor Wyndham's letterhead. Elena's statement positioned the Hollows as rogue actors who'd deceived everyone, including state leadership. She expressed shock, promised full investigations, pledged accountability. Classic political distancing. She's cutting them loose, Alara observed. Of course she is. They're liabilities now. Roman scanned the statement. But she's making a mistake. She thinks controlling the narrative is enough. Isn't it? Only if we let her control it. Roman looked at Marco. Give me a meeting with Serena. Today. I don't care what it takes. The FBI won't let you near her. Then convince them. Tell them we have evidence that connects Elena Marsh to a decade of conspiracy. Tell them anything that works. Marco left to make calls. Roman turned to Alara. You should rest. I slept 3 hours. I'm fine. You're not fine. You watched Declan get shot by his own father. And I'd watch it again. Alara's voice was flat. I don't need rest. I need this to be over. It's almost over. You said that before the gala. Look how that ended. Roman couldn't argue with that. The gala was about exposure. This is about justice. Different objective. Justice. Alara tasted the word. You really think we'll get that? People like Elena don't face consequences. They pivot. They survive. Not this time. You sound certain. I am certain. Because this time, we're not playing by their rules. Roman moved to the window, watching dawnlight creep across the industrial district. Elena's power comes from operating in shadows. We're about to drag her into full sunlight and watch her burn. And if she burns us first, then we burn together. The statement should have sounded dramatic, but Roman's tone made it simply factual. Alara studied his profile, this violent, calculating man who'd become her only ally in a war she hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. "Why do you care this much?" she asked quietly. "Really, not the reasons you tell Marco or your people. The real reason." Roman was silent for a long moment. Then, "Because no one cared when it mattered. When my sister died, I was 19. Broke. Nobody. I screamed about what her husband had done, and people looked through me like I was invisible. The system protected him because he had legitimacy, and I didn't." He turned to face her. "So now I have legitimacy, or at least power that looks like it, and I'm using it the way it should have been used 20 years ago. That's revenge. That's accountability. There's a difference." Before Alara could respond, Marco returned. "We're in. Federal Building, Atlanta, 2 p.m. Agent named Sarah Reeves is running Serena's protection. She's willing to meet, but only because the evidence we sent is credible enough to make her nervous." Nervous about what? About how deep this goes? About who else might be involved? Marco's expression was grim. The FBI's been watching Elena Marsh for years. Suspected corruption, but never enough to act on. Now we've handed them a case. "Then let's not waste it." Roman grabbed his jacket. "Nico, maintain security here. Marco, you're with me. Alara is coming with you," Alara interrupted. "It's not safe." "Nowhere's safe, and Serena needs to see me. Needs to know she's not the only one who survived." Roman wanted to argue, but recognized the futility. "Fine. But you follow my lead. Things get dangerous, you extract immediately. No arguments." "No arguments." They left 20 minutes later, taking 2 vehicles and a route that changed 3 times to avoid surveillance. The drive to Atlanta should have taken 4 hours, but Marco pushed it to 3, weaving through traffic with the casual aggression of someone who'd spent years evading law enforcement. The federal building loomed stark and bureaucratic against Atlanta's skyline. Security was thick. Metal detectors, armed guards, ID checks at multiple points. They surrendered weapons at the entrance, submitted to searches, and waited 30 minutes in a sterile conference room before Agent Reeves appeared. She was younger than expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Varelli, Ms. Vane, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing us," Roman replied. Reeves sat across from them, a thick folder between her hands. "Let's be direct. The evidence you sent implicates Judge Everett Hollow, his son Declan, and potentially others in conspiracy, fraud, unlawful imprisonment, and possibly murder. That's federal territory, which means you're now witnesses in an active investigation." "Understood." "It also means you're targets. People connected to this case have resources, connections. They'll come after you." "They already are," Alara said. Reeves nodded. "I've read your statement. I'm sorry for what you experienced, but I need you to understand. Testimony alone isn't enough. We need documentation, physical evidence, witnesses who can corroborate. You have Serena Vale. We have a woman who survived 2 years of unlawful commitment. That's powerful. But defense attorneys will attack her credibility, argue Stockholm Syndrome, medication side effects, false memories." Reeves leaned forward. "We need more." Roman slid a USB drive across the table. "Financial records, shell company formations, payment trails, all leading back to Elena Marsh." Reeves picked up the drive carefully. "How did you obtain this?" "Does it matter?" "It matters if we want convictions. Illegally obtained evidence was obtained by private investigators using lawful methods." Roman's tone left no room for argument. "Everything's documented, chain of custody maintained, admissible in court." Reeves studied him for a long moment. "You've done this before." "I've prepared for this moment for a long time." She nodded slowly. "I'll review the evidence, but I need something from you first." "What?" "Access to Serena. Not official testimony yet. Just a conversation. She needs to see that she's not alone, that other survivors exist." Reeves glanced at Alara. "She's been isolated for 2 years, convinced no one believed her, convinced she was disposable. Hearing from someone who escaped the same fate might help her trust us." Alara's throat tightened. "I'll talk to her." "Good." Reeves stood. "Follow me." They moved through secure corridors to a protected wing where witnesses stayed during high-profile cases. Outside a guarded door, Reeves stopped. "She's fragile. Be gentle. And understand, She might not believe you at first. 2 years of pharmaceutical manipulation destroys trust. Alara nodded. The room beyond was small but comfortable. A woman sat by the window, staring at nothing. She looked younger than her photos suggested, maybe 30, with dark hair that had been recently cut and clothes that hung loose on a frame that had lost too much weight. She didn't turn when they entered. "Serena," Reeves said gently, "you have visitors." "I don't want visitors." "I know, but these people understand what happened to you. They survived similar experiences." Finally, Serena turned. Her eyes were hollow, haunted, but something flickered when she saw Alara. "You're the one from the news," Serena said quietly. "The woman at the gala." "Yes." Alara moved closer slowly, like approaching something wild. "My name is Alara Vane. I was with Declan Hollow for 2 years. He tried to do to me what he did to you." Serena's hands clenched. "But you got away." "Barely. I ran during a storm. Almost died. Someone helped me." Alara glanced at Roman. "People who believed me when I said what was happening." "No one believed me." Serena's voice cracked. "I told doctors, nurses, anyone who'd listen. They just increased my medication. Because the system was designed to silence you. Declan made sure of it. His father signed the paperwork. Someone named Elena Marsh built the infrastructure." At Elena's name, Serena's expression shifted. Recognition and something deeper. Fear. "You know that name," Roman observed. "She visited me, once, maybe 6 months ago." Serena's hands trembled. "She said if I ever told anyone about Declan, she'd make sure I never left, that I'd spend the rest of my life medicated and forgotten." "Did she say why?" "She said I was protecting important people, that my silence mattered more than my freedom." Serena looked directly at Alara. She meant it. I could see it in her eyes. She'd bury me forever and sleep fine. Alara felt rage crystallize into something cold and focused. "She can't touch you anymore. You're protected now, federal custody. The whole country knows what happened. The whole country thinks I'm crazy. I've seen the news, the comment sections, people saying I'm making it up, that I was unstable before Declan." "Let them think that," Roman interjected. "Public opinion doesn't matter. Evidence matters. And we have enough evidence to destroy everyone who hurt you." Serena studied him with the wary intelligence of someone who'd spent years learning to distrust. "Who are you?" "Someone who protects people the system abandoned." "You mean you're a criminal?" "Yes." The blunt honesty seemed to surprise her. "Why would you help me?" "Because no one helped my sister when she needed it, and I've spent 20 years trying to balance that equation." Serena's eyes welled. "Your sister, what happened?" "Same thing that almost happened to you. Different man, same system." Silence fell across the room. Outside, Atlanta traffic hummed distantly. Inside, 3 people who'd survived different versions of the same nightmare sat together and understood things no one else could. Finally, Serena spoke. "What do you need from me?" "Testimony," Reeves said. "Everything you remember. Names, dates, visits. Who committed you? Who kept you drugged? Who threatened you?" "And you'll actually do something with it? Actually prosecute?" "I will personally ensure that everyone involved faces federal charges." Reeves's voice was steel. "But I need your cooperation, complete cooperation." Serena looked at Alara. "If I do this, testify publicly, they'll destroy me, won't they? My name, my credibility, everything." "Probably," Alara admitted. "They'll try. But you'll be telling the truth. And truth has a way of surviving even when people try to bury it." "Does it?" "Because 2 years ago I told the truth and ended up in a psychiatric prison." 2 years ago you were alone. Now you're not." Serena's expression wavered between hope and terror. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay, I'll testify. I'll tell everything." Reeves exhaled. "Thank you. We'll start formal interviews tomorrow. For now, get some rest." They left Serena in her protected room and reconvened in Reeves's office. The agent looked exhausted, but determined. "This case is going to get ugly," she said without preamble. "Elena Marsh has spent 30 years building political capital. She won't surrender quietly." "We're not expecting quiet," Roman replied. "Good, because she's already moving. Governor's office issued a statement an hour ago. Full internal review. Independent investigation. All the right words. Reeves pulled up the statement on her computer. But notice what's missing. Alara scanned it. Elena's name. Exactly. She's not mentioned once. The governor's distancing herself while leaving Elena in place, which means Elena still has power. Then we cut her power off at the source. Roman stood. What's the fastest way to get this to trial? Realistically, 6 months. Maybe a year with delays. That's too long. That's the system. Then we work outside the system. Roman looked at Marco. Leak everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we have on Elena Marsh. Give it to journalists, activists, social media. Make it impossible to ignore. Reeves frowned. That could compromise the prosecution. Or it could make prosecution inevitable. Public pressure forces action faster than bureaucracy. It also warns Elena we're coming. She already knows we're coming. Roman's voice hardened. Now we show her we're not afraid. They left the federal building as afternoon shadows stretched across Atlanta. The drive back to Savannah felt longer, heavier, weighted with the knowledge that they'd just escalated beyond any possibility of retreat. Marco drove while monitoring news feeds on his phone. It's already starting. Someone leaked Judge Hollow's medical records, his personal finances, connections to Elena Marsh. That's not us, Roman said. No, it's coming from inside state government. Someone else wants Elena gone. Rival factions. She's losing protection. Alara stared out the window. Does that make this easier or harder? Both. Roman leaned back. Easier because the pressure's not just from us. Harder because now we're in a feeding frenzy. Everyone wants a piece. Will there be anything left? Of Elena? No, that's the point. They reached Savannah after dark. The safe house appeared undisturbed, but Nico reported increased surveillance around the perimeter. Someone's watching us. Professional setup. I count at least 3 observation posts. Elena's people? Marco asked. Probably, or law enforcement. Hard to tell the difference at this level. Roman processed that. Double the guard rotation. No one moves alone. And prepare emergency evacuation protocols. Boss, if we evacuate now, I'm not evacuating. I'm preparing. There's a difference. Alara retreated to her room, exhaustion finally catching up. She collapsed onto the bed, still fully dressed, mind racing through everything that had happened. Serena's haunted eyes, Elena's name echoing like a curse, the growing certainty that this war wouldn't end cleanly. Sometime near midnight, she woke to voices downstairs. Argument, sharp, contained, dangerous. She descended quietly. Roman and Marco stood in the main room, both tense. Absolutely not, Marco was saying. It's suicide. It's necessary. Necessary for what? You've already exposed her, given the FBI everything. What more do you need? I need her confession. On record. Undeniable. She'll never confess. She will if the alternative is worse. Marco's hands clenched. You're talking about kidnapping a state official. That's federal. That's life in prison, even if everything else sticks. So we don't get caught. Roman, she built the infrastructure that disappeared women for years. She threatened Serena. She enabled the Hollows. Roman's voice dropped to something cold. She doesn't get to lawyer up and plea bargain her way to minimal consequences. She needs to face what she did. This isn't justice. It's revenge. Why can't it be both? Alara stepped into the light. What are you planning? Both men turned. Roman's expression was unreadable. Go back to bed. Tell me what you're planning. Nothing that concerns you. Everything about this concerns me. Alara moved closer. You're going after Elena Marsh directly, aren't you? Roman said nothing. That's insane, Alara continued. Marco's right. You'll get caught, or killed, or both. Maybe, but she'll be finished first. At what cost? Whatever cost is necessary. The absolute certainty in his voice was frightening. Alara had seen Roman calculated, strategic, controlled. This was different. This was personal. This was the part of him that had been building for 20 years and was finally breaking free. Your sister, Alara said quietly. This isn't really about me or Serena. It's about Lucia. Roman's jaw tightened. Don't. Elena Marsh didn't hurt your sister. Someone else did. Taking Elena down won't bring Lucia back. I know that. His voice was harsh. But it'll stop her from destroying anyone else. And that's enough. No, it's not. Because you're going to throw away everything you've built for revenge that won't satisfy you, even if it works. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Alara stepped directly in front of him. I understand rage. I understand wanting to hurt the people who hurt you. I stood over Declan Hollow, watching him bleed, and felt nothing but emptiness. That's what revenge gives you. Nothing. Then what should I do? Let her walk away? Let the system handle it. For once, let the FBI build their case. Let prosecutors do their job. The system failed, repeatedly. But because people like you didn't trust it to work. So you built alternative power structures that just perpetuate the same violence in different forms. Alara's voice cracked. I don't want to watch you become another version of the thing you're fighting. Silence stretched between them. Then Marco's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. Understood. We're on our way. What? Roman demanded. Serena's dead. FBI found her in a room an hour ago. Apparent suicide. The words hit like physical blows. That's impossible, Alara whispered. She was protected. Federal custody. Someone got to her anyway. Marco's voice was tight. They're calling it suicide, but no one believes that, which means Elena's people reached inside federal protection. Roman's expression went completely cold. How? Don't know yet, but Agent Reeves wants us back in Atlanta. Now. They were moving before Marco finished speaking. Weapons retrieved from secure storage, vehicles loaded. The drive to Atlanta took 2 hours this time. Marco pushing the car past any reasonable speed while Roman made calls and coordinated with his network. Alara sat in the back seat feeling numb. Serena had survived 2 years of imprisonment only to die within hours of going public. The cruelty was almost incomprehensible. The federal building was chaos when they arrived. Police vehicles everywhere. News crews setting up despite the hour. Inside, Agent Reeves looked like she'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. Sodium pentothal mixed with her evening medication, she reported without preamble. Induced cardiac arrest that looked like natural causes. Medical examiner caught it only because I ordered a full toxicology screen. Who had access to her medication? Roman asked. That's the problem. Everyone. Nurses, doctors, support staff. We're reviewing security footage, but... Reeves stopped, her frustration evident. Someone on my team is compromised. Has to be. No other way to explain access. Elena Marsh, Alara said. Most likely. But proving it... Forget proving it. Roman's voice cut through. Where is she right now? Elena? Probably at the governor's mansion. She lives in the residence complex. Security? State police. Executive protection. Why? Roman didn't answer. He turned to Marco. Get the team. Full tactical load. We move in 1 hour. Boss, Marco started. 1 hour. Reeves stepped forward. Mr. Varelli, I can't let you do whatever you're planning. Then arrest me. Or step aside. Choose quickly. The agent stared at him, clearly calculating. Finally, I didn't hear this conversation. And I'll need at least 2 hours to review Serena's case files, which means I'll be occupied. Unreachable. Roman nodded once. Appreciated. They left the federal building and regrouped at a warehouse Marco had used for previous operations. Weapons were distributed, body armor, communication equipment, 15 men total, all with experience in situations that never made official reports. Alara watched the preparation, feeling both horrified and grimly satisfied. You're actually doing this. Yes. You'll start a war. Elena has protection, connections. You storm the governor's mansion, and we get answers, recorded, documented, admissible or not. Roman checked his weapon with mechanical precision. Serena's death proves the system can't protect witnesses, can't maintain custody, can't deliver justice. So you deliver it instead? With guns? With accountability? He met her eyes. You can stay here. You should stay here. No. Alara's voice was steady. I'm coming. Serena died because of me. Because we brought her into this. I owe her. You don't owe anyone anything. Then I'm choosing to come. Same way you chose this. Roman wanted to argue, but recognized the same determination he'd seen in the mirror for 2 decades. Stay behind me. Follow orders. If things go bad, I know. Extract immediately. We've been through this. They moved out 30 minutes later, convoy of dark vehicles heading toward the governor's mansion complex on Atlanta's north side. Marco had obtained security layouts through contacts Alara didn't want to know about. Nico had disabled surveillance systems using methods that were definitely illegal. The mansion sat behind walls and gates and enough security to protect a small nation. But security was designed to stop external threats, not coordinated tactical teams with inside knowledge. They breached the perimeter at 3:47 a.m., moving through service entrances and maintenance tunnels that shouldn't have existed on official plans. Silent, efficient, years of practice making impossible operations look routine. Alara followed Roman through corridors that smelled like money and power. Her heart hammered, but her hand stayed steady. They'd taught her enough in the past weeks that she wasn't completely useless, just mostly useless. They reached the residence wing without triggering alarms. Elena Marsh's quarters were at the end of a long hallway, guarded by 2 state police officers who were disabled before they could call for backup. Roman kicked the door open. Elena Marsh sat at a desk, fully dressed despite the hour, as if she'd been expecting them. A laptop glowed in front of her, coffee steamed nearby. She looked up calmly when they entered. "Mr. Varelli," she said. "Right on schedule." Roman raised his weapon. "Hands where I can see them." Elena complied, moving slowly. "You're making a mistake. Serena Vale is dead. That's your mistake." Serena Vale was a liability that resolved itself. Tragic, but ultimately inevitable. You ordered her killed. I ordered nothing. I simply ensured that certain realities were understood by certain people. Elena's smile was cold. That's how power works. Indirect, deniable. "Not anymore." Roman stepped closer. "You're going to confess. Everything, on record." "I'm going to do no such thing." Marco appeared beside Roman, holding a camera. "Then we beat it out of you." "And undermine any legal credibility the confession might have?" "I don't think so." Elena leaned back. "You're smarter than this, Mr. Varelli. You know forcing a confession invalidates it. Anything I say under duress becomes inadmissible. Your lawyers will ensure that." "Don't need lawyers. Just need the world to hear you admit what you did." "The world won't believe it. They'll see a woman terrorized by a known criminal. They'll sympathize with me and vilify you." Her eyes glittered. "You've already lost. You just don't realize it yet." Alara pushed past Roman. "Serena Vale trusted the system. She testified. She cooperated. And you had her murdered." "I've never met Serena Vale." "You visited her at the facility, threatened her. She told me." "A drugged woman's hallucinations, not evidence." "Then explain the phone call to Declan after the gala, telling him to activate contingency protocols." Elena's expression didn't change. "What phone call?" "The one we recorded." Marco held up his phone. "Hospital surveillance, audio and video. You instructing Declan to stay quiet while you contain the situation." "That proves nothing except that I advised someone facing prosecution, which is legal." "It proves coordination, conspiracy. It proves I gave legal advice to someone I've known for years. Nothing more." Roman's weapon stayed trained on her. "You're not walking away from this." "Of course I am, because you've made critical errors." Elena stood slowly. "You've committed multiple felonies in the past hour. Breaking and entering, kidnapping, assault on police officers, all documented. All on security systems you think you disabled, but didn't." Marco's face paled. "Boss. I've been broadcasting this entire conversation," Elena continued. "Federal agents are already en route. You have perhaps 3 minutes before this building is surrounded. And when you're arrested, which you will be, every piece of evidence you've gathered becomes fruit of the poisonous tree. Inadmissible. Worthless." Roman didn't lower his weapon. "Then I've got 3 minutes. To do what? Kill me? That makes you a murderer and me a martyr. My work continues under someone else's authority. Your work ends tonight." "My work is institutional. It outlives individuals." Elena smiled. "You can't kill an institution, Mr. Varelli. You can only become part of it." Sirens rose in the distance. Marco touched Roman's shoulder. "Boss, we need to move." Roman's finger stayed on the trigger. Not yet. Roman, Alara started. She needs to understand. His voice was soft, deadly. She needs to know she didn't win. But I did win, Elena said, because in 30 seconds, federal agents arrest you, and I become the victim of a violent home invasion. My influence grows, my protection strengthens, and the next woman who threatens powerful men learns the same lesson Serena learned. The sirens grew louder. Roman's hand didn't waver. Then Alara saw his finger slowly tightening on the trigger, not pulling yet, but starting to. And she realized with absolute clarity that Roman Varelli was about to murder someone in cold blood while being recorded, was about to destroy everything they'd fought for because his rage had finally consumed his reason. She stepped directly in front of the weapon. Move, Roman said. No. Alara, move. Not until you lower the gun. She killed Serena. She destroyed dozens of women. She needs to die. Maybe. But not by you. Not like this. Alara's voice shook. You told me destroying yourself for revenge isn't worth it, so don't make me watch you do exactly that. Roman stared at her, weapon still raised, his whole body vibrating with barely restrained violence. The sirens were right outside now. Please, Alara whispered, don't become what you've been fighting. Something flickered in Roman's eyes. For a moment, Alara thought she'd failed, thought he'd pull the trigger anyway. Then slowly, painfully, he lowered the weapon. Smart choice, Elena said. Roman turned to her. We're not done. Yes, you are. No. Roman's smile was frightening. Because in about 90 seconds, every piece of evidence we gathered gets uploaded to 200 different servers. Financial records, recordings, documents, everything. And one of those uploads includes tonight's video, you admitting that Serena was a liability, you confirming coordination with Declan, you threatening that more women will learn the same lesson. Elena's smile vanished. You're right that forced confessions are inadmissible, Roman continued, but public statements made voluntarily while believing you were safe? Those count. And you just gave me everything I needed. The sound of boots thundered through the hallway. Move, Marco shouted. They ran. Through service corridors and hidden passages. Behind them, federal agents flooded the residence. Radio chatter exploded through communication devices. Someone was yelling orders. They reached the tunnel system and were halfway to the extraction point when gunfire erupted behind them. Contact, Nico's voice through earpieces. Multiple hostiles, they're not FBI. More gunfire, screaming. Then Nico's voice cut off. Nico, Marco called. Nico, respond. Silence. Roman grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her forward. Keep moving. They emerged into a parking structure where vehicles waited. Half of Roman's team was already dead or captured. The survivors piled into cars and tires screamed as they fled into Atlanta's pre-dawn streets. Pursuit came immediately, federal vehicles, state police, and something else. Black SUVs with no markings. Elena's people. Still hunting. The chase tore through Atlanta like controlled chaos. Marco drove with desperate precision while Roman coordinated defensive maneuvers through his earpiece. Buildings blurred past. Traffic lights became suggestions. Behind them, one of their vehicles was rammed off the road. Crash. Flames. We're losing people, Marco shouted. I know, just drive. They took an exit too fast, nearly rolling, recovered and kept going. The pursuit thinned slightly. Maybe fell back, or maybe just regrouped. Finally, after 20 minutes of pure adrenaline, they reached another safe house. This one in a residential area, anonymous and forgotten. They abandoned the vehicle and sprinted inside. Silence fell except for ragged breathing. Roman leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Count. 6, Marco said. Out of 15. The rest are dead or captured. Nico? Didn't make it out. Roman's expression went blank. Confirm. Can't, but he's not answering. Neither are 4 others. Alara sank to the floor, the reality crashing over her. They'd attacked a state official, lost most of their team, accomplished nothing except making enemies of people who could destroy them legally, and Elena was still free. Roman opened his eyes. Did the upload work? Marco checked his phone. Yeah, all 200 servers, the video's already viral, Elena's statement is everywhere. Then we won. We lost 9 people, and we won. Roman's voice was hard. Elena's exposed. Her protection's evaporating. By morning, she'll be facing federal charges. By morning, we'll be dead or in prison. Maybe, but we changed the outcome. That's all that matters. Alara looked up at him. You really believe that? Yes. 9 people died tonight for a recording, for revenge, for justice. I can't tell the difference anymore. Roman crouched beside her. Neither can I. But Serena's death means something now. Elena can't bury it, can't spin it. The truth is public, undeniable. That's worth the cost. Is it? Alara's voice cracked. Because from where I'm sitting, we just proved we're as willing to destroy lives as they are. We're just better at justifying it. Roman had no answer for that. Outside, dawn was breaking over Atlanta. And somewhere in the governor's mansion, Elena Marsh watched footage of her own confession spread across the internet and began calculating her next move. Because Roman was right. They weren't done. The sun rose over Atlanta like an accusation, throwing harsh light across a city that was just beginning to understand what had happened in the dark hours before dawn. Elena Marsh's confession played on every news channel, looped endlessly across social media, dissected by legal analysts who couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. A woman of her position, her connections, admitting, however indirectly, to crimes that spanned decades. But in the anonymous safe house where survivors huddled around laptops and phones, watching their victory unfold in real time, the triumph felt hollow. Roman stood at the window, his reflection ghost-like against morning light. Behind him, Marco worked 3 phones simultaneously, coordinating with lawyers, monitoring law enforcement channels, trying to determine which direction the next threat would come from. Alara sat on the floor with her back against the wall, knees drawn up, staring at nothing. She hadn't moved in an hour, hadn't spoken since they'd counted the dead. 9 people, 9 lives traded for a recording that might not even hold up in court despite going viral. Federal warrant issued for Elena Marsh, Marco announced without looking up. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, accessory to murder. They're moving fast. Good, Roman said flatly. There's also warrants for us. Breaking and entering, assault, kidnapping, the works. Expected. Boss, we can't stay here. They'll track us eventually. I know. But Roman didn't move, just kept staring out the window like he could see something the rest of them couldn't. Alara finally spoke, her voice raw. Was it worth it? Roman turned to face her. Yes. 9 people are dead. And Elena Marsh's empire is collapsing. Declan Hollow's in custody. His father's headed to prison. The system that protected them for decades is tearing itself apart. Roman's voice held no doubt. So yes, it was worth it. You really believe that? I have to believe that. Otherwise, what was any of this for? Alara stood slowly, her legs unsteady. I need air. You can't go outside. Then I need space. Something, because I can't sit in this room and pretend we're heroes when we just got people killed. We didn't get them killed. They chose this, knew the risks. Did they? Did they know we'd storm a state official's residence based on rage and revenge barely disguised as justice? Alara's voice rose. Did they know their boss was willing to sacrifice them for a vendetta? Marco glanced up, clearly uncomfortable. Roman's expression hardened. This wasn't a vendetta. Then what was it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you used Elena Marsh as a proxy for every person who ever failed someone you loved. And 9 people died so you could feel like you'd finally evened the score. The words hung between them like smoke from a gunshot. Roman moved closer, his voice dropping to something cold. You want to blame me? Fine. Blame me. But don't pretend you weren't right there making the same choices. You came to my gates bleeding and desperate. You pushed for this. You demanded action when the legal system moved too slowly. So if this is revenge, we're equally guilty. Maybe we are. Alara met his eyes without flinching. Maybe we're both so damaged by what was done to us that we can't tell the difference between justice and destruction anymore. Silence fell. Then Marco's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression shifting from tension to something approaching disbelief. You're sure? Confirmed? He ended the call and looked at Roman. Declan Hollow's talking. Full confession. Names, dates, details. He's giving up everyone to cut a deal. Roman straightened. Everyone? Everyone. His father, Elena. Other politicians, judges, prosecutors. He's burning down the entire network to save himself from a murder charge. The shooting, Alara said. His father trying to kill him. That broke him. Apparently, he's been talking for 6 hours straight. Federal prosecutors are scrambling to document everything. Marco pulled up his phone, reading. And there's more. Judge Hollow's been formally charged. Attorney General's office is investigating 47 cases he presided over, looking for other victims, other women who disappeared into the system. Roman absorbed this. So it's working. The exposure is cascading. Yeah, but it also means we're running out of leverage. Once Declan gives them everything, our testimony becomes redundant, which means our value as witnesses decreases. And our liability as criminals increases, Alara finished. Marco nodded grimly. We've got maybe 24 hours before federal agents decide we're more trouble than we're worth. Then we use those 24 hours. Roman moved to the table where laptops were spread. What's Elena's status? Arrested 3 hours ago. Currently in federal custody. No bail. Her lawyers claiming coercion, that our recording was obtained illegally, that she was terrorized into making statements. Will it work? Probably not. Between Declan's confession and public outcry, she's done. But she'll fight it. Could take years to actually convict. Years we might not have. Roman pulled up files they'd compiled over weeks of investigation. What about the other women? The ones we suspected were victims but couldn't confirm. Marco hesitated. Boss, we need to focus on our own survival, not expanding the investigation. Answer the question. 7 names, women who disappeared from Declan's life over a 15-year period. 3 confirmed dead. 1 in psychiatric care under questionable circumstances. 3 completely vanished. No bodies, no trails. Roman studied the names. Young women, beautiful, vulnerable, all fitting the same pattern. Find them, or find what happened to them. I want documentation before we disappear. We don't have time. Make time. These women deserve to be more than footnotes. Marco wanted to argue, but recognized the futility. I'll see what I can do. The next hours passed in tense activity. Phone calls to lawyers negotiating potential immunity deals, encrypted messages to journalists ensuring certain evidence couldn't be buried, communications with federal agents willing to trade leniency for cooperation. Alara watched it all from a distance, feeling disconnected. They'd won. The Hollows were destroyed. Elena was facing justice, but victory tasted like ash and blood. Around noon, Marco's contact at the FBI called back. Agent Reeves wanted a meeting, neutral location, just Roman and Alara. No weapons, no backup, no games. It's a trap, Marco said immediately. Probably. Roman checked his watch. Set it up anyway. Boss, we're out of options, Marco. We either negotiate now or spend the rest of our lives running. I'm too old and too tired for running. The meeting was set for 3 p.m. at a public park. Open space, witnesses, minimal cover for ambush. Roman and Alara arrived 15 minutes early, watching for threats that could come from any direction. Agent Reeves appeared exactly on time, alone, looking exhausted. She sat on the bench beside them without preamble. I'm supposed to arrest you, she said. But you won't, Roman replied. Not yet. Because despite your methods being completely illegal, you've handed us the biggest corruption case in Georgia history. 40 federal charges filed so far. More coming. Declan's cooperation has opened doors we didn't know existed. You're welcome. Don't be smug. You killed police officers, assaulted federal facilities. You're looking at life in prison. Unless you disappear quietly and let the legal system finish what you started. Reeves turned to face them. I can't officially sanction what you did, but I can unofficially ensure that certain arrest warrants remain low priority, that certain evidence takes time to process, that certain witnesses become difficult to locate. You're offering us a head start. I'm offering you a chance to walk away before this destroys you completely. Her voice softened. You exposed evil, real evil, but you crossed too many lines doing it. If you stay, you'll be prosecuted. If you run, you might survive. Roman was silent for a long moment. Then, what about the other women? The ones still missing? We're investigating. Declan's confession included details about 2 more victims. Remains were found. Families are being notified. And the one in psychiatric care? Already extracted. Real name is Amanda Corso. She's receiving treatment at a legitimate facility. Her family's been contacted. Alara felt something loosen in her chest. She's safe? She's alive. Safe is relative. But yes, she'll recover. How many total? Roman asked. How many women did they destroy? Reeves pulled out a file. Based on Declan's confession and our investigation, 11 confirmed victims over 18 years. Serena Vale, Amanda Corso. 2 women whose remains were found. 7 others who were committed to facilities, drugged into compliance, then either died of natural causes or were released after signing non-disclosure agreements backed by financial settlements and legal threats. 11? Alara's voice was barely a whisper. 11 women. That we know of. There might be more. The investigation's ongoing. Roman stood, walking to the edge of the park. And Elena Marsh? What's her actual exposure? Conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction, accessory to unlawful imprisonment, possibly accessory to murder if we can prove she knew about the deaths. Reeves joined him. But here's the thing. Elena's smart, compartmentalized. Her direct involvement is hard to prove. Most communication went through intermediaries. Most decisions were verbal. So she might walk. She won't walk free, but she might avoid the harshest charges. That's the reality of prosecuting people at her level. The system protects itself. Then the system's broken. Yes, but it's the only system we have, and right now it's at least trying to deliver justice. That's more than we had a week ago. Roman turned back to Alara. What do you want to do? The question surprised her. Why are you asking me? Because this started with you. Should end with you too. Alara looked between Roman and Reeves, feeling the weight of that choice. Run and survive, but abandon any sense of closure. Stay and face prosecution for crimes committed in pursuit of justice that might never fully materialize. If we run, she said slowly, what happens to the case against Elena? It proceeds. Declan's testimony is enough. Your absence might actually help, makes it harder for defense attorneys to attack your credibility. And if we stay, you testify, face cross-examination, get torn apart by lawyers protecting their client, possibly end up in prison yourselves if prosecutors decide to make an example. Some choice. It's the only choice I can offer. Alara walked away from both of them, needing space to think. The park was busy with afternoon activity, children playing, couples walking, normal people living normal lives, unaware that a few feet away, criminals and federal agents were negotiating the price of justice. She thought about Serena, dead before she could see her abusers face consequences. Thought about Amanda Corso, drugged for years, her identity erased. Thought about 7 other women whose names she didn't know, but whose suffering was identical to her own. 11 victims. 11 lives destroyed so powerful men could maintain their reputations. And now she had a choice: save herself or ensure their stories were told completely. I'll testify, she said, returning to the bench. Whatever it takes. I'll tell everything. Roman's expression shifted. Alara. No. You asked what I wanted. This is what I want. Those women deserve someone who'll stand up in court and say their names. Say what happened. Make it matter. You could go to prison. Maybe. But at least I'll know I didn't run when it counted. Reeves nodded slowly. All right. I'll arrange protective custody. Get you prepared for testimony. It won't be easy. Nothing about this has been easy. Roman stepped closer. I'll stay too. Testify alongside you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I started this as much as you did. We finish it together. Marco, who'd been monitoring from a distance, approached. Boss, if you do this, everything's gone. The organization, the resources, all of it gets seized. Then it gets seized. I'm tired of building empires on blood and compromise. Roman looked at his second in command. You should run. Take whoever wants to go. Start over somewhere clean. And leave you here? I'm not asking. I'm telling you to survive. Marco's jaw worked. Then he nodded once, sharp and final. Good luck, boss. He left without looking back. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of depositions, legal preparation, and protective custody that felt like another kind of prison. Alara spent hours with federal prosecutors, walking through every detail of her relationship with Declan, every moment of abuse, every threat, every time she'd tried to escape and been pulled back. Roman testified about his investigation, carefully editing out the most illegal elements while providing enough detail to build the narrative prosecutors needed. His organization dissolved as Marco disappeared with core personnel and federal agents seized properties, accounts, and assets built over 30 years. Elena Marsh fought every charge with lawyers who cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Her defense was sophisticated, claimed she'd been deceived by the Hollows, manipulated into providing assistance she didn't understand was criminal, terrorized by Roman's home invasion into making statements under duress. The media ate it up. Half the country saw her as a monster who'd enabled predators. The other half saw her as a victim of an overzealous prosecution fueled by a mobster's vendetta. The truth, as always, lived somewhere uglier than either narrative. Trial was set for September, 3 months after the gala that had destroyed the Hollows publicly. In that time, Judge Everett Hollow died in prison. Heart attack, officially, though rumors suggested suicide. Declan accepted a plea deal. 28 years in exchange for complete cooperation and testimony against everyone he'd worked with. Amanda Corso recovered enough to give a video deposition. Her testimony was devastating. 2 years of pharmaceutical imprisonment, forced compliance, identity stripped away. The jury watched it in silence. Then it was Alara's turn. She walked into the federal courthouse on a September morning that felt too beautiful for the ugliness about to be exposed. The courtroom was packed, journalists, activists, people who'd followed the case, and in the back, partially hidden, family members of women who'd never come home. Elena Marsh sat at the defense table looking composed and professional. She didn't look at Alara as the oath was administered. The prosecutor, a woman named Davidson who'd spent 6 weeks preparing Alara for this moment, approached the witness stand. "Ms. Vane, can you tell the court how you met Declan Hollow?" Alara took a breath and began. She spoke for 4 hours, told everything. The initial charm, the gradual isolation, the escalating control. The moment she'd found Serena's commitment papers and understood what her future held, the escape through the storm, Roman's intervention, everything that followed. Elena's lawyers objected repeatedly, claimed hearsay, claimed speculation, claimed Alara was an unreliable witness with motivation to lie. But Alara didn't break, didn't waver, just kept speaking in a voice that stayed steady even when describing the worst moments. When Davidson finally said no further questions, the courtroom exhaled collectively. Then Elena's lead attorney stood for cross-examination. "Ms. Vane, you've admitted to participating in an armed home invasion, correct?" "Yes." "And you've admitted to being present when police officers were assaulted?" "Yes." "So you're a criminal." "Admittedly, factually. A criminal testifying against someone you've publicly stated you wanted destroyed." "I'm a survivor testifying about what was done to me and others. A survivor who allied herself with a known mob boss, who participated in violent crimes, who has every reason to lie if it means avoiding prosecution yourself." "I'm not lying, but you could be. You've demonstrated a willingness to break laws, to use violence, to pursue revenge regardless of legality. Why should anyone believe you're telling the truth now?" Alara met the attorney's eyes. "Because I have nothing left to lose. Roman Varelli's organization is gone. My freedom's probably gone. My credibility is destroyed. The only thing I have left is the truth. So that's what I'm giving you. The truth as you perceive it, filtered through trauma and bias, and the truth is documented in medical records, financial transactions, and testimony from multiple witnesses, including Declan Hollow himself." Alara's voice hardened. "You can attack my character, but you can't erase the evidence." The cross-examination continued for another 2 hours, brutal, exhaustive, designed to break her credibility into fragments defense attorneys could exploit. But Alara had survived worse. Had survived Declan, survived the storm, survived watching people die for a justice that might never fully arrive. A lawyer's questions couldn't touch her anymore. When it finally ended, she stepped down from the witness stand feeling hollow but intact. Roman testified next. His presence in the courtroom shifted the energy. This wasn't a victim recounting trauma. This was a dangerous man explaining calculated decisions. His testimony was shorter, more focused. He described the investigation, the evidence gathered, the decision to confront Elena directly. "And why did you break into Ms. Marsh's residence?" the prosecutor asked. The shut. Because legal channels had failed repeatedly. Because a witness under federal protection was murdered. Because the system designed to deliver justice had been corrupted by the very people we were trying to expose. "So you took justice into your own hands?" "Yes." "That's illegal." "I know. I accept responsibility for that choice." Roman looked directly at the jury. "But I don't regret it. Because without that confrontation, Elena Marsh would still be operating, still be protecting predators, still be destroying women." Elena's attorney tried to rip him apart on cross. Failed. Roman had spent 30 years being questioned by people far more dangerous than lawyers. He gave nothing but what he chose to give. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Witnesses testified. Experts analyzed evidence. Defense attorneys constructed alternative narratives that placed Elena as a peripheral figure manipulated by more powerful forces. In the end, it came down to the jury. They deliberated for 4 days. When they returned, the courtroom was silent enough to hear breathing. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice, guilty. On the charge of accessory to unlawful imprisonment, guilty. On the charge of accessory to murder, not guilty. The mixed verdict reflected the complexity of prosecution. Elena was convicted on charges that could prove direct involvement, acquitted on charges requiring proof of knowledge about deaths that had been carefully insulated from her direct participation. Sentencing was set for November. Alara and Roman faced their own charges separately. Breaking and entering. Assault. A list of crimes committed during the investigation and confrontation. Their attorney negotiated a deal: time served, probation, permanent loss of certain rights. The prosecutor agreed, recognizing that imprisoning them would create martyrs and undermine the larger case against systematic corruption. They accepted. 6 months after Alara had collapsed at Roman's gates, she walked out of the courthouse a free woman. Technically, legally. But freedom felt nothing like she'd imagined. Roman emerged beside her, squinting in November sunlight. "What now?" he asked. "I don't know." They stood on the courthouse steps while journalists shouted questions neither bothered answering. The city spread around them, continuing its normal rhythms, indifferent to their survival. "I meant what I said," Alara continued quietly. "About Harbor House, a real shelter, real resources. You still want to build that?" "More than ever. Those 11 women, they're not coming back, but we can make sure the next woman has somewhere to go, somewhere better than bleeding on a stranger's driveway." Roman smiled faintly. "That's a low bar." "Then we'll exceed it." They walked away from the courthouse together, past reporters, past protesters, past people with opinions about what they'd done and whether justice had been served. Elena Marsh received 18 years, would likely serve 12 with good behavior. Not enough, by any measure, but more than nothing. Declan Hollow was transferred to federal prison to begin his 28-year sentence. His father's legacy was being systematically dismantled as appellate courts reviewed his cases and found pattern after pattern of bias, corruption, and abuse. Amanda Corso started a foundation for psychiatric abuse survivors. Her first major donor was an anonymous contribution large enough to fund operations for 5 years. Alara recognized Roman's touch in the transaction, but never mentioned it. Winter came to Savannah with unusual cold. Alara found a small apartment near the water, nothing like the luxury she'd briefly known with Declan, but clean and hers and lockless. She could leave any time. That mattered more than comfort. Roman bought a house in the historic district, nothing ostentatious, just a place that felt like recovery rather than empire. They saw each other weekly, sometimes to discuss Harbor House, which was slowly becoming real through legal channels and careful fundraising. Sometimes just to sit in silence and remember what survival cost. One evening in January, nearly 8 months after everything began, they walked along the riverfront as ships moved through channels and tourists photographed sunsets. "Do you still think it was worth it?" Alara asked. The question she'd asked before, the question that had driven a wedge between them during the worst of it. Roman considered. "I think we did what we believed was necessary. Whether that was right or wrong depends on perspective." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. We stopped predators. We exposed corruption. We gave voices to women who'd been silenced. He paused. But we also got people killed, broke laws, became the kind of violent force we claimed to oppose. So we're just as bad as them. No, we're different. But we're not innocent. Roman looked at her. Maybe that's the real lesson. Justice isn't clean. It's not noble. It's just necessary. And sometimes necessary means getting blood on your hands. Alara wanted to disagree, wanted to believe there was a pure version of justice that didn't require compromise or violence or moral ambiguity. But she couldn't. Not anymore. Serena deserved better, she said finally. Yes. She deserved a system that protected her, believed her, saved her before it was too late. Yes. We failed her. We did. Roman's voice was heavy. But we made sure her death meant something. Made sure the people who killed her faced consequences. That's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's what we have. They walked in silence until the sun dropped below the horizon and streetlights flickered to life across the city. I saw Marco last week, Roman said abruptly. He's in Costa Rica, building something legitimate, security consulting for nonprofits. You still in contact? Occasionally. He says the people who left with him are doing well, starting over without the weight of what we built. Do you regret it? Losing everything? Roman thought about that. I regret the cost. The lives lost. The damage done, he paused. But I don't regret the outcome. The Hollows destroyed 11 women over 18 years. If we'd done nothing, that number would be higher. So, on balance, he stopped. I don't know. Ask me in 10 years. Will we know each other in 10 years? I hope so, but I don't know that either. Spring arrived and with it the first residents of Harbor House. The historic mansion Alara had envisioned slowly became real through permits and renovations and countless bureaucratic battles. They opened in April with space for 15 women and a waiting list twice that long. Serena's photograph hung in the main hallway, not as a memorial, though it was that too, but as a reminder. A promise. This woman died because no one protected her. Everyone who walks through these doors gets the protection she deserved. Amanda Corso attended the opening. She looked healthier, stronger, though something in her eyes would probably never fully heal. She and Alara spoke briefly, awkwardly, two survivors who'd never met but shared identical scars. Thank you, Amanda said simply, for not forgetting us. I couldn't forget if I tried. Does it get easier, the memories? No, but you learn to carry them better. Amanda nodded like that was the answer she'd expected. Roman stayed in the background during the opening, uncomfortable with celebration or recognition, but Alara caught him watching the women arrive, watching them realize the doors stayed unlocked, watching them understand they were safe. The expression on his face looked like grief and relief tangled into something that might eventually become peace. That night, after the press left and residents settled into rooms that were theirs without conditions, Alara and Roman sat on the front porch watching Savannah's evening lights emerge. Your sister would be proud, Alara said. Roman didn't respond immediately. Then, maybe, or maybe she'd tell me I went about it wrong, that revenge disguised as justice is still revenge. Is that what you think this was? I think it was complicated. I think we did terrible things for defensible reasons. I think the line between hero and villain is thinner than anyone wants to admit. He looked at her. What do you think? Alara considered. I think we survived. And surviving was enough to let us help others survive. Maybe that's all justice ever is, passing forward the protection you wish you'd received. That's a generous interpretation. So was 9 people dying to expose Elena Marsh. We contain multitudes. Roman smiled faintly at that. Then his expression grew serious. I need to tell you something. Okay? I'm leaving Savannah, probably for good. The words landed heavier than expected. Why? Because I've spent 30 years in this city building power structures that ultimately enabled exactly the kind of corruption we fought against. I can't stay here and pretend that's not true. He gestured toward Harbor House. This is your work now. Your legacy. I'd just contaminate it. That's not true. It is. And you know it. His voice was gentle. You don't need me anymore, Alara. You needed protection when you were hunted. needed resources when you were powerless. But you're neither of those things now. You're whole, or at least becoming whole. Where will you go? Don't know yet. Somewhere I can start over without the weight of what I've been. Alara felt tears threaten and forced them back. Will I see you again? Maybe. Probably. The world's smaller than it used to be. Roman stood, preparing to leave. But if we don't, know that meeting you changed something. Reminded me that the violence I'd normalized wasn't inevitable, that there were still things worth fighting for without becoming monsters. We became monsters anyway. We became survivors who did monstrous things. Different category. He squeezed her shoulder briefly. Take care of this place. Take care of yourself. And if another woman shows up bleeding at your door, I'll do better than you did. That's all anyone can ask. Roman walked to his car, paused with his hand on the door, then drove away into Savannah's night. Alara watched until the taillights disappeared, feeling loss and liberation in equal measure. Inside Harbor House, a woman was crying quietly in her room. Another was laughing with staff about something trivial and meaningless and important precisely because it was normal. A third sat in the courtyard garden Roman had helped plant, just breathing, just existing without fear for the first time in years. Alara walked through the house, checking doors, making sure everyone knew where she'd be if needed. The building settled around her with the particular quiet of a space designed for healing. In Serena's photograph, the dead woman smiled at something beyond the camera. Alara stopped in front of it, touching the frame lightly. "We didn't save you," she whispered, "but we made sure you weren't forgotten. I hope that matters. I hope wherever you are, you know we tried." The photograph didn't answer, but somewhere in the building, a woman who'd been missing for 3 years and was only now being found laughed at a terrible joke, and the sound carried through the halls like light through darkness. Alara returned to the porch, settling into the chair Roman had vacated. The city spread before her, beautiful and corrupt and survivable. Ships moved through channels carrying cargo and secrets, and people running towards something or away from something else entirely. She thought about Declan, rotting in federal prison, his golden future reduced to concrete and bars. Thought about his father, dead before facing full accountability. Thought about Elena Marsh, beginning a sentence that would probably end with her still claiming innocence. Justice had been partial, incomplete, imperfect, but it had been something, and sometimes, Alara had learned, something was enough. The phone in her pocket buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "The house looks good. You did it." She smiled and didn't respond. Some things didn't need answering. 10 years later, Harbor House had expanded to 3 locations across Georgia. The original mansion in Savannah remained the flagship, a place where approximately 400 women had found temporary safety that became permanent transformation. Alara ran the organization with the same brutal efficiency Roman had taught her, combined with the humanity Declan had tried to destroy. She was 36 now, still single, still scarred, but whole in a way that had nothing to do with romance or validation from others. She'd learned to exist alone without being lonely, to lead without controlling, to protect without possessing. Roman sent postcards occasionally, never with return addresses, just images from places he'd been. Prague, Buenos Aires. Somewhere in Japan she couldn't pronounce. The messages were brief. Still breathing. Hope you are too. She kept them in a box in her office. Declan Hollow died in prison after serving 11 years. Stabbed by another inmate during a dispute over something trivial. The news reported it as tragedy. Alara felt nothing but distant relief that he'd never get the chance at parole. Elena Marsh was released after serving 9 years. She moved to Arizona, changed her name, and disappeared into whatever life people like her built after consequence finally arrived. Alara tracked her occasionally through contacts who'd remained from Roman's old network, knew where she lived, knew she'd gained weight and lost influence and spent her days in anonymous suburban obscurity. That felt like justice enough. Amanda Corso's foundation merged with Harbor House in year 7, combining resources to create something larger than either organization could build alone. Amanda herself married, had a child, wrote a book about survival that became required reading in social work programs across the country. They remained friends, the kind who understood each other's silences. On the 10th anniversary of the night Alara had collapsed at Roman's gates, Harbor House held a memorial service, not for celebration, but for remembrance. Names were read aloud, Every woman confirmed as victim of the hollow network. 11 names, 11 lives, 11 reasons the work continued. Serena Vale's name was read first. The 11th name was Lucia Varelli. Roman's sister, dead 23 years before any of this began. The woman whose absence had set everything in motion. After the service, Alara found a package on her desk. Inside, a cashier's check large enough to fund Harbor House operations for another decade, and a note in handwriting she recognized. Some debts take longer to repay, some never get fully settled. But we keep trying anyway. That's what survival means. Keep building, keep protecting, keep proving that the monsters don't always win. Roman. No return address, no way to respond. But Alara understood that was the point. She deposited the check and returned to work. Outside, Savannah continued its eternal dance between beauty and corruption. Ships moved through harbors. Tourists photographed history while ignoring present suffering. People fell in love and betrayed each other and survived and failed and tried again. And in a renovated mansion near the water, women who'd been told they were disposable learned otherwise. Learned they could rebuild from fragments. Learned that escape was possible even when it seemed impossible. Learned that sometimes survival was victory enough. Alara stood on the porch as evening settled, watching the same sunset she'd watched 10 years earlier with Roman beside her. He was gone now, living whatever life he'd built from the ruins of his empire. She was here, doing the same. They'd both survived. Imperfectly. Incompletely. But undeniably. And somewhere behind prison walls, the men who'd believed they could erase women from existence sat with the knowledge that their victims had outlasted them. That their names would be forgotten while the women they'd tried to destroy would be remembered. That power built on silence eventually crumbles when people refuse to stay quiet. Alara walked back inside Harbor House, past Serena's photograph, past rooms where women slept without locks, past a future being built one survivor at a time. The door closed behind her with a sound like a promise being kept. And outside, Savannah's evening breeze rolled through streets once ruled by fear and silence, carrying voices that refused to be erased.